reconvene this Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The Committee of the Whole is called back to order. We're going to bring up Public Works, and then once we bring up Public Works, we'll go into the other ones we have. Ordinance number 1182-2023 by Council Members Gray, Bishop, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital, where Mr. DeRosa go?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to apply to the District 1 Public Works Integrating Committee for state funding for constructing improvements to portions of Shaker Boulevard from Buckeye Road to the East Corporation Line to apply for and accept any grants, any gifts or grants for this purpose from any public or private entity authorizing professional services agreements with public and private entities and any relative agreements, and authorizing the Commissioner of Purchases and Supplies to acquire, accept, and record for right-of-way purposes any real property and easements necessary to make the improvement. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is typical legislation when we intend to apply for Issue 1 money for a roadway project. Issue 1 is through JOPWIC, which is state funding. And this project is Shaker Boulevard from Buckeye Road to the East Corporation Line. It's the typical roadway improvements that we can expect to perform, and the length is 1.7 miles. This does include complete and Green Street elements, and I do want to highlight that this is one of the projects that went through the Transportation Infrastructure Advisory Committee, which was set up after or through the Complete and Green Streets ordinance that came through City Council in 2022. So the project cost is about $9.6 million, and proposed funding sources are listed on your tablet, with about $1 million from urban paving funds. We're hoping to get 4.4 from Issue 1 grants. There's a new water line that's needed on the road, and that's what's represented with public utilities for $2 million. And then in the future, we'll have to sell and go through City Council for authority for the Cleveland Road or Bridge bonds for about $2.1 million. So this is in both wards 4 and 6, and the schedule is here. We would apply for the grants in late summer of 2024, but we need legislation passed now to get the design contractor on board in time to bid and award before we apply for that grant.
Okay, thank you. I don't see Councilman Bishop, but I do know that this was heard of municipal properties. Councilman Hairston was relieved by you, right?
Yes, fully supported.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no questions, ordinance number 1182-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. The next ordinance is ordinance number 1273-2023 by Council Members McCormick, Bishop, and Hairston by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to issue a permit to 1865 West 22nd Street, LLC, to encroach into the public right-of-way of West 22nd Street by installing, using, and maintaining new entrance staircases and an at-grade courtyard. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is for, it's for a development that's remodeling and expanding an existing apartment building. And they're changing where the entrance to this existing building is, and that would require installing, using, and maintaining a new entrance staircases and an at-grade courtyard, partially in the public right-of-way. So this ordinance is needed for that encroachment permit to allow that work. West 22nd Street is located off Bridge Avenue near St. Emmerich's Church, and the project is being constructed by 1865 West 22nd Street, LLC. And we do have support of the councilman.
Okay. All right, this one doesn't actually, because it's a permit, it doesn't have to be signed by the Finance Committee, but the committee members of DPS do have to sign it, so, okay? So I'll just pass that to you. Councilman Hairston, did you have any comments on 1273-2023?
No further issues. The director explained it. Fully support.
Okay, thank you. Please, if there's no other questions, ordinance number 1273-2023, please sign on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me get these public safety ones. All right, public safety. We're going to go to ordinance number 1293-2023 by council members Polisic and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the director of public safety to apply for and accept a grant from the United States Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance for the fiscal year 2023 Burn Justice Assistance Grant. Local solicitation, authorizing one or more contracts with Cuyahoga County and various cities, and authorizing the purchase by one or more contracts of one mobile security unit to implement the grant. Director and Mrs. Hartsong.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
To the Council through the Chair, this grant through BJA would assist the Division of Police. It talked about the mobile unit. The mobile unit that it's referring to is a mobile camera that can be moved from location to location. It is on a stand, if you will, and there's an extension that raises it to about 20 feet in the air. You've probably seen this in some of the suburbs along the highway, along the roads or whatever. This would give us one of those. This would give us two. This grant would pay for one of two of those. It would be a very necessary item for the Division of Police, something we look forward to utilizing, and it would complement the camera systems that we already have in place throughout the city.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Polisic.
Chairman, my honorable colleague, is there a reason why the director's not here?
He's on his way. I was finishing up another meeting.
Okay, okay,
I'm just letting him know now that we're us to be.
okay. Again, just touch, again, I would ask whoever can answer, this will apply, we will get additional cameras? I'm not clear on this.
The unit that it refers to, part of the grant would pay for the mobile camera.
So these are cameras that can be moved to various locations in the city?
One portion, it would pay for one camera, yes, sir.
Just one camera?
This grant would pay for one of the two cameras the city has purchased, yes.
And they're wait a minute, unless I'm looking at something wrong here. It's,
I think the summary might be a little bit
yeah,
off.
yeah, right.
It looks like it's a little off.
Yeah, it looks like the wrong
Could you show
summary.
her?
Through the chair, the one portion of the grant is to pay for a camera system, it's a security system. The rest of the grant pays for the continued salaries of 2 fingerprint examiners and 2 crime
Okay,
analysts.
so the cameras would go, Mr. Chair, to Dawn. Where would the cameras go?
Through the chair to the council member, it is a mobile unit. It's a very large
Yes.
space, and it has a big pole that goes up with
Yes.
lights and cameras. So it can be, it's mobile, so it can be trucked to any place that it's needed. If
So
there's a
that-
big community event,
okay.
or there's a situation
So
that it could be requested
it would be used it would be used for special events
through the-
and large gatherings.
Yes, sir.
Do we have anything like that presently? Because I thought we did, that's what I'm wondering.
We did have a system and a lift. I'm not sure if it's still in use or not, but this is a updated system that will record, and it would also be able to, it would be able to be utilized with our real-time crime center as well.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman and my colleagues, this did not come before committee. This was asked by the administration for suspension, and that's why it's here. So that's why I'm trying to learn as much as I can as well. So I see no reason to object to it, Mr. Chairman, but I just, that's why I asked the questions I did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And once again, I know you'll be meeting with your chair regularly, so once you guys can have a conversation and talk a little bit more about how they're deployed and everything else, okay? All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1293-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. All right, next up is 1298-2023 by Councilmembers Polisic and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend Section 135.071 of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by ordinance number 1188-12, passed September 10th, 2012, relating to the maximum age for original appointment to the divisions of police and fire. Directors and Chief, did you guys want to go through this?
Yes. Here we go. Yes, Council President, thank you. important point here is that if this legislation is passed, 1298-2023 would amend the codified ordinances to increase the maximum age for an original appointment to the Division of Police as a police trainee from on or before the person's 40th birthday to 50th birthday. This change will enable an additional segment of the population that is interested in entering the police force with the opportunity to pursue this goal. All other elements of Section 135.071 of the codified ordinance will remain unchanged. I don't know how in depth, and I know that council has questions. I did have an opening statement there that may answer some of those questions if I can have the latitude to read it.
Please proceed.
Raising the maximum age from 40 to 55, the City of Cleveland has an opportunity to enhance the diversity, breadth of experience, and overall quality of the Division of Police by raising the maximum hiring age for applicants from 40 to 55. This change can yield a multitude of benefits, not only to the police force, but also the community it serves. Firstly, by raising the maximum hiring age, the City of Cleveland would increase the pool of applicants. This broader selection could result in a more diverse force in terms of age and life experience. Diversity within the police department can foster, diversity within the Division of Police can foster greater understanding, empathy, tolerance among officers, which can in turn enhance community relations and create a more inclusive environment for everyone involved. Secondly, older applicants often bring with them a wealth of experience which can be invaluable in law enforcement. They often possess advanced problem-solving abilities, negotiation skills, and emotional intelligence, which are all vital to quality police work. The ability to handle high-stress situations with calmness and maturity can be especially beneficial in de-escalating conflicts and reducing the use of force. Moreover, older officers can serve as mentors to younger recruits, providing guidance and sharing wisdom that can only be gained through years of experience and age. This can foster a culture of continuous learning within the department and improve the overall effectiveness of the force. Now, there may be folks who argue that older officers may not have the physical agility to perform the duties of a police officer. However, this concern is mitigated by the rigorous vetting process which all applicants, regardless of age, must undergo. This includes the physical agility test, ensuring that all cadets, applicants to the Division of Police have the physical ability necessary for the job. In addition to the physical test, applicants are also subjected to comprehensive background checks, reference checks, employer background checks. Through these investigations, we ensure that all recruits have demonstrated a good history of character and integrity. Social media checks further ensure the potential officer's public behavior aligns with the values of the Division of Police. Moreover, applicants must pass behavioral-based interviews, which assess their ability to handle situations they may encounter on the job. This, along with the health physical and drug tests, ensure recruits are in good health and free from substance abuse. Finally, psychological assessments are conducted to ensure that the applicants are mentally fit for the demands of the work. This is particularly important in a profession that often deals with stressful, traumatic situations, and these assessments ensure that recruits have the mental resilience to cope with these challenges. In conclusion, I say, raising the maximum hiring age for Division of Police from 40 to 55 can bring numerous benefits to the Division of Police and the community it serves. It can enhance diversity, experience, and quality to the force, while the rigorous vetting process ensures that all recruits, regardless of age, are physically, mentally, and ethically fit for the job. This is a step that we should absolutely consider as we look to modernize the Division of Police, but also as a commitment to the community we serve. And I can tell you that I know that there are some folks who have asked, why not lower the age to 18? And we've done some research on that, and we know that even at the age of 21, there are studies that are urging and suggest raising the age from 21 to 23 or 25 is beneficial. That's not something that we're looking to do. We know that maturity and cognitive ability, in especially men, the brain is still developing into the late 20s. The frontal cortex that gives that critical decision-making and allow to processing information in high-stress environments does not come into full fruition until the mid-20s. Here, we aren't looking for older applicants to join Gang Impact and SWAT. We're looking for those folks who can interact with the public on those quality of life issues, who have a desire to serve the community, and I believe that will significantly contribute to our issues that we're having with recruitment. Now, raising the age to 55 is not new or largely out of the box. There are divisions of police around the country that have no age limitation, just no age ceiling as well. And we're still having that ceiling. We still have the vetting process, and we believe that we can find quality candidates to join the Division of Police. And the last thing I'll do this, and I'm going to say this so that everyone understands. Again, we're not going to sacrifice quality for quantity. We are not going to hire somebody to work for the Cleveland Division of Police that is unable to do the job. I would not do that to the city, to our citizens, and I would not do that to the officers who are already working in uniform.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of things that I want to make sure that we touch base. So I appreciate you doing this. I think this is actually good. But help me understand, what is the date that they have to retire? If they're coming on at 55, I'm almost certain that they're not going to come and do a 30-year career. So help us understand how that's going to operate.
Sure, President, to Council, is that many of these folks would not be retirement eligible. You have to have 15 years in the system to be retired, even eligible for a partial retirement. These are looking to attract people who are looking for something else to do to supplement their income. This is not having them for 20, 25 years. The mandatory retirement age for officers by the state is 65 years old. So at most, if you came on you can't be 55. You got to be 54 is the oldest you can be at the start of the academy. So even if they stayed 10 years, they wouldn't be retirement eligible. These are folks who potentially already have a retirement and are looking for something else to do. The military members retire. If you go in at 18, you retire at 38, right? So they have that 2-year window. This would be able to attract those. You have folks who have had other careers and or who are working looking for benefits. We are attracting those folks. This is not a matter of this is where you're going to get your retirement from.
Okay. Well, we did do some background in looking at some of these cities. The policy and research team have found out that most cities don't even have a cap. Even if you look at some of our sister cities in Ohio,
That's right.
like Cincinnati and Toledo, significantly higher ages. And then it actually took me to talk to a police officer to tell me that they're not necessarily always chasing guys out on the block anymore. So the physical agility might not be as needed as much as it has been in the past, as much as it is people who understand how to problem solve and how to deal with communities and engagement and those kind of things more. So hopefully this will help because we definitely need to onboard some folks. But in the background and the limited amount of research that I did with the policy team, it looks like it's something pretty sound.
And Council President, if I may, many of the jurisdictions that don't have that ceiling, they're still having staffing issues, right? This is something that we haven't tapped into yet. And there really is no negative to this. As members of council have said, maybe our vetting process is too strict. Our vetting process is still going to make sure that we put the finest people out on the streets.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, we're not going to pound it today, but I am interested in how we can have a model that I don't think maybe guys should be able to join the force at 18, but we should be able to put them in some type of temporary or some kind of on-road or on-ramp so that we don't lose those 2 or 3 critical years between 18 and 21. Because a lot could happen between 18 and 21 if you don't get them on a trajectory to onboard them into the police force at 18. So I'd be really interested in what might be some best practices, but we're not going to deal with that today. We'll just deal with the expansion of
Can
the
I touch on that just real briefly? Because I can tell you that, Mayor Bibb has spoken to the Chief Nine and has instructed us, solve this staffing issue, and to look at what we already have in place. A great avenue that we have into the police force is working for our traffic enforcement. Now, if we can create a bridge from traffic enforcement into the Division of Police, that is something that we can do. And we can talk about some other things that we are doing that will serve as that bridge, President. Like, as you said, today, that's not what we're here for.
Okay. All right. Councilman Polensky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the director and to Commander. Is it captain or commander now?
Deputy Chief, sir.
Oh, excuse me, man, you're moving up in the world, okay? Good Deputy Chief. As I indicated, I had a lengthy discussion with the director on this issue. And, Mr. Chairman, as I've indicated to you in our discussions, I have some mixed feelings, some reservations But I'm willing to give it a shot. I joked to the director, at the rate we're going within the Division of Police, we're going to be going to the Slovenian Home for the Aged to look for future candidates. But I understand, but a question that was posed to me by a officer, if an officer worked for CPD and retired and was in the drop program, would they be excluded?
That I don't want to answer that off the top of my head, Councilman. I
Okay.
can get that answer more succinctly from the law department
Yeah.
and get back to you.
Yeah, I'd like that, because that was a question posed to me, because I thought once you were in a drop program, first of all, you had to retire by a certain age or a certain length of service.
8 years, that's correct.
8 years. And then, so that question was, if those folks that are out, if they wish to reapply, could they do so?
If I might. Councilman, through the chair, I believe that's something we'd have to confer with our Ohio Pension Board about.
Yeah.
There
Okay.
might be
That's right.
some ramifications involved with that I'm not sure of.
Okay, so I would officially request that, Mr. Chairman, through our research staff and the administration. So outside of that, Mr. Chairman, I'm here to support. Again, the proof will be in the pudding, whether we get people applying. I have some reservations, because as of today, how many officers do we presently have on the force?
1191.
1191. Okay, even with the 9 that came on Friday?
We have, that would be, 1191, and then there's about 15 coming back as well. I'm scheduled to square in about, I think, 5 officers coming back on the 8th. We have about 15 officers coming back.
Those are lateral?
Those are those are returns.
When you say returns, what do you mean?
Returns, folks who have left
Okay,
the
follow.
division and are coming back.
And they don't have to go through the academy?
I just got to swear them back in.
Okay.
They're within that window of time.
So just briefly, Mr. Chairman, going to 2024, when do you think a new class will be seated?
Our goal right now is to have a class seated at the middle to the end of March or the first week of April.
Okay. So we're still going to be in a very difficult situation the first quarter of the year with regard to the rank and file. And that's of great concern to me. So it should be at all members as well. So again, I'm here to support this legislation. We'll see how it works, Mr. Chairman, as you and I have discussed. Hopefully we get some folks that are going to apply that have the talents and skills to help our citizens, and time will tell. Thank you, Mr.
And if I can just add to that, is that, I think that with the applications that that are coming in and the hiring event that is going to take place on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of December, which is something new and different that we're doing, I believe that, I think that we can be optimistic about that number increasing, the pendulum starting to swing the other direction.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly I'm more open-minded. Certainly we have these challenges as relates to getting more police into our city for the proposition of being a safer city. And I've talked about the lowering of age. I see that, we're talking about lifting that age. So if we lift it, Mr. Chairman, from to where it's at now, 55, if someone who's 56 or 57 wanted to apply, they couldn't.
No, they could
under
not.
this legislation.
Councilman through chair, they could not.
So the question I would have, Mr. Chairman, why even have, given the fact that there are other police departments that don't have a limitation on age, why do we have a limitation on age?
Councilman, I can tell you that I don't know why it's there. I can tell you that, as Chair Polensik has stated, he has some reservations about the current request to take it to 55, and I think that we have to crawl before we can walk. So I think that we should look at the fruit that comes from raising it from 40 to 55, see what that does, and again, to always be in a phase of process improvement as we look at our challenges for recruitment. But I don't think we need to close the door on that. I think that we need to, again, evaluate where we are, look at the changes that we're making, measure those changes, and see what else we can do.
Right. So I'm not, Mr. Chairman, I guess you open up the questions on this when it talks about retirement and having retirement benefits, because I know a police officer who came in at 55 years of age, and his issue was, I think, that how old do you have to be to age out?
65 is the state mandated retirement age.
So then you
Or,
age
or,
out.
or not necessarily retirement age, but you have to leave the division of police
You have to leave the division of
at
police.
65 years old.
So if you're 65 years old, strong, stable, and capable, you still would have to retire.
Yes.
Is that, Mr. Chairman, and that's for the entire state of Ohio? So that's all police departments are up under?
That's the state. So that's everyone. I don't know of any exceptions. I can discuss that with the law department, Councilman, but 65 and out is the current rule.
I see. And so even if you're able, capable, strong, pass the physical test, when you get 65, that's it for the police department. So we don't have anybody in our police department that is past age 65?
That I don't believe so. I'd have to.
To the councilman through the chair, that is something that we're working with the law department with. We have officers who are approaching the age of 65 but have not reached their 8 years in drop yet, and we are exploring the options through the law department and hopefully with the safety director's help to be able to extend them to continue working.
Well, could we just do that arbitrarily, or would we have to go through the law department? Could we just set the age at maybe 75?
I'd have to consult that with the law department. I can't answer that as I sit here at the table,
Right.
Councilman.
So then, let me ask this question. So if I get hired in, ideally, at the age of 55 as a police officer working for the city of Cleveland, I wouldn't be eligible for full benefits by the time in 10 years. I would have to.
Councilman through the chair, not retirement.
So what benefits would I be eligible for if I've spent 10 years?
So while you're employed, you would have the benefits that come with full-time employment.
But there's no
And then
benefits after.
There is no benefits after. There would be no benefits after.
So when a police officer is here serving, who just is hired in at, say, 25, when is he benefit eligible for retirement?
Officers they call it vested. They would be vested after 15 years.
I see. So then, we couldn't set something up where, it's also an additive incentive for getting a retirement, say from age 65 to 70?
No, the retirement is not run by the city. Retirement is a
I know.
state mechanism. We could not.
We couldn't extend it to that as an extra added benefit for someone who's 65 years old and maybe want to.
Councilman, I don't believe so, but I would have to ask that pointed question to the law department.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not opposed to this, and I would, certainly, I don't know if the director looked into the Warrensville program, where they have a program with Tri-C Community College, and they run two programs simultaneously, one for recruitment for police officers in terms of training through Tri-C Community College, and they also run a program to help young people who are in school or who are interested in being firefighters. So I don't know if we looked at that model, and maybe I think that model works for Warrensville, and something that we should look at as well.
So we are in the process of working on a vocational program with CMSD. We have the Public Safety Ambassadors Program for 18 to 26-year-olds. We are working on building a pipeline into public safety, really beginning as early as the third grade with our Junior Explorers Program and Explorers Program. The Junior Explorers Program is something that we're looking to begin next year. So we are looking on a stable and secure pipeline into careers in public safety. This is us trying to really solve the short-term issues that we're having, right? And to make sure we don't experience it again.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not opposed to it, and it's great to see that the director is moving, you said as low as third grade?
It's third grade.
That's real good.
My
Thank you.
6-year-old was a SWAT officer after interacting with officers at the 5th District. That Halloween, he was a SWAT officer. We have to allow these children to touch and concern these officers. These officers have been heroes to young people before. They can be heroes to young people again. And a large part, that narrative of creating this pipeline is on us as leaders in the city and on the Division of Police as professionals in uniform.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank the director. No further questions. I yield the floor.
All right, thank you. Councilman Richard Starr.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Director, for coming as always. Yeah, I do definitely want to just put a note. I do have some reserve, and what I mean by that is when I start thinking about 55, I think of obviously my parents, and I'm not sure if I know that many people who will want to possibly get started in a career in law enforcement around that age. So my question definitely will be to the chair, to the table would be, have we received, inquiries from people around this age range looking to work? And if so, do we have like a pool of candidates who've possibly applied? Because I know sometimes people apply for jobs even if they don't know the backstory around that age requirement. Do we have like a list or quite a few individuals or candidates who are interested around the age range of 55 or over 50 that wants to be an officer? To the chair.
So that's a great question, Councilman. Councilman, through the chair, I can tell you that I've personally been out and I've had people asking me about it. They've been asking me, should I put my application in for the current quarter? Our recruitment team has reported back that they have been receiving numerous phone calls about people asking, should they apply, should they put their applications in, or should they wait until this body acts on it. The advice that our recruitment team has been given is put the applications in, right? You want to be able to have that option. You don't want to have this passed and then have to wait a whole other quarter for us to take this action. So I can tell you the inquiry is actually there. And Councilman, I know that you work out a lot, right? I work out with a 70-year-old guy.
Yeah.
This guy can bench 415 and he can run a mile and a half faster than some 30-year-olds, right? So you have folks out there who, 54 and under, between that age range of 40 and 54, who can meet the physical and mental rigors of the Division of Police. The phone calls that have been coming in show that there is a significant interest in this, and a lot of folks are waiting to see what this body does, but I can tell you that the interest is there.
Okay, and then just for my clarification, right now, before this ordinance is passed, the current higher age is 40, right?
Correct.
So now we going to...
You cannot be 40 years old the day you sit in the academy. You can be 39 on that first day and have your 40th birthday the next day.
Okay, and now it will be 55, that same rule.
That's right.
Okay.
And
So-
Councilman, through the chair, I know we're focusing a lot on the age of 55.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a large contingent of people who feel like they've missed out at the
Okay.
age of 40 who would like to join law enforcement. So we're really, while we're highlighting 55, we're talking 42, 43-year-old, 45-year-olds, physically capable and mentally mature to be able to join us.
I think, yep, and I think that is very. Council,
I'm good. I couldn't wait to be in that district.
please do not call Officer House Jones on me. Please do not call Officer House Jones on me.
But Councilman Starr, DC Pillow raises a great point. I'm 47 years old. I couldn't be a police officer today, right? I'm in great shape. I know that I could meet everything required. Why are we prohibiting folks who have a spirit of dedication to this community, right? Who, in all essence, right?
Yes.
That we really want them. This is the same group of people that we want to step in to some of these youngsters' lives and to tell them, give them good guidance, right?
Okay.
To put them in uniform and put that discernment and that life experience in uniform. Again, with our vetting process, there's no downside
Yep.
to
And
this.
so just to wrap it on up, Council President as well as council members. So if we could basically come up with the pros and cons, could we list some of those or talk about what's the pros of being able to raise this age requirement, and then what's some cons, because I think the people at home, the viewers at home, will definitely kind of get an understanding. I usually implement most of my things in the rules of 3. I can remember the first 3 points. After that, I'm not going to remember the rest. So what would be like 3 pros of raising that age requirement, just so people could get the context of why we're doing this?
I can give you 2 major cons because
Yep.
one is the same apprehension that many folks at the table have, right? Can you be a good police officer over 40 years old? Right? That question, we can answer that question. The other one is that you're going to have people who apply who are going to be going through the system who we are going to evaluate and who can't make it, right? So that's going to be really, the cost of the psychological assessment, the cost of the physical, the time that it takes to do the physical agility test, right? but that's also a good thing. You want to put more people into that pipeline, and if you fail the physical agility test, our recruitment team has the conditioning camps to help you pass it. If you can't pass the psychological assessment, you can file an appeal, and if there's something that's nuanced there, you may be able to win your appeal. So there's that, right? But the benefits is, think about traffic enforcement. One of the most cumbersome, by volume, jobs the Division of Police has. You are going to have officers, and as this body has said before, traffic enforcement is the backbone to law enforcement in our city. We're going to have increased traffic enforcement, but you're also going to have officers at a greater age giving that better quality customer service, right? That desire to de-escalate as opposed to escalate. You know how we oftentimes say you got to know how to talk to people?
Yeah,
Older folks know how to talk to people,
correct.
right? And you are going to have people in our community, the entire city of Cleveland, right? We're broadening it to that pool, to Gen X and millennials, right? Maybe even catch some baby boomers in there who have that spirit of service to the city. And if you want to serve this city, you want to make this city safe, I don't think anybody here wants to be a barrier to tell people you can't do it.
Yeah, yep. I think that is great, but like you said, so just changing that age range from 40, moving it to a maximum age of 55, and law enforcement, as far as safety from law enforcement and fire, that's some point that we definitely got to mention out as well, fire. Isn't it fire too?
No, just law.
Just
police.
law enforcement? Okay. So that is very important. And is fire similar to 40 age?
Fire is similar to the 40 age, but the rigors of the
Fire.
job is different.
A little different. Okay. So just as I wrap up, so my colleagues, if you're thinking about becoming a law enforcement, y'all might have to retire a little bit earlier than expected, because some of you knocking on the door. That's my joke for the day for my colleagues, because they call me the baby all the time. But so, Council President, I know your age. You're knocking on the door, but I definitely yield, and I thank you all.
All right, thank you so much, Councilman. Great comments. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1298-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Next one is ordinance number 1300-2023 by Council Members Polinsky and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant from the United States Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance for the fiscal year 23 Public Safety Partnership Grant, authorizing the Director to enter into one or more contracts with the Task Force on Violent Crime, DBA Partnership for Safer Cleveland, and with various agencies and/or entities, and to enter into various written standard purchase and requirement contracts to implement the grant. Directors and Deputy Chief and Ms. Hartsong.
Thank you. President, to the body, the goal of the Public Safety Partnership, or the PSP grant, is to increase collaboration and build capacity among law enforcement, prosecution, and community partners to enhance public safety. The Cleveland Division of Police was selected by the National Public Safety Partnership Program for 4 years. During that time, we received free consultation and support from the Bureau of Justice Assistance to develop a strategic plan to address violent crime and public safety priorities. The funding from this grant will allow the Cleveland Division of Police to complete recommendations related to the crime analysis, technology, and community engagement, allowing them to drive home all the successes that they have gained. Cleveland will improve community trust by developing better programs to fully engage the community. They will greatly expand their witness victim protection program by partnering with local organizations to provide these services. And we will provide more training on crime analysis and video forensics. And we will utilize technology to be a force multiplier to offset severe manpower shortages. The expenses to be reimbursed include, for personnel, $18,600. That's for officer overtime. $85,420 for travel related to training, crime analysis, forensic training. $154,000 for equipment, $150,000 contractual, another $83,900 specific to witness relocation and license plate readers, $5,000 for cell phone extraction licenses, and $3,080 for office supplies. That's for a total of $500,000. The grant period is from October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2025. This is a new grant, and there is no local match.
Okay. I have Councilman Polinsky first. And then Councilman Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I reviewed the piece. Again, this is not coming before the Public Safety Committee because the administration requested under suspension. I've read it, the contents, and I support it.
Thank you, Councilman Jones.
I just have a question on the fund for witness relocation and license plate reader licenses. If the director could elaborate, do we have more in that fund for witness relocation than what's being offered here, or is this what we have in that contractual?
So I don't have the full amount of funds that we utilize, but oftentimes the Division of Police will, depending on a case-by-case basis, request funds and working with community partners and with other departments to make sure that we can work with witnesses to help solve violent crime. I mean, we have a solve rate of approximately 77%, and some of that comes from our work with our witnesses, making sure that they're safe. So this is going to be a tool added to what we already have.
Right. So, but do we have a fund separate of this, that we may have funds that are there for witness relocation if necessary?
No specific fund dedicated to this at this time, I don't believe.
I see. And then, Mr. Chairman, the next question I would have is plate readers for licenses. How many of those do we have in the city? And how many would be actually would come out of this contractual allocation?
So I don't have the number for the full amount of license plates readers that we have in the city. I know that they're all installed. I can get that for you probably before we leave the table. And then this year we'd have to go through IT to see how many more license plate readers we could add. That would be, that's where the division would happen.
Right, and the reason why I asked, I was actually watching a program, Mr. Chairman, to the director, where they were talking about these license plates readers in other cities and how they're resolving crime and connecting suspects to crime locations. You know, we're actively having an issue, and I know, Mr. Chairman, we have a lot of problems in the city of Cleveland. We do have a number of cameras, Mr. Chairman, that I think there was a $122 million commitment from the previous administration to install cameras throughout the city of Cleveland, and wanted to see if we may have this tool also in the toolbox with the existing cameras, locations we have.
So we do have our Safe CLE cameras up and around the city. I don't know what that number is off the top of my head. I get that in the report. We have 100 license plate readers currently installed. We have license plate readers that are going to be going into our zone cars as part of this dash cams, as the chief brought up. And then we also have our FUSIS program, which allows the community to share their camera footage with us. And these are all valuable tools to help us to identify and track, perpetrators as they move through our city, based off of good intelligence that we have.
Mr. Chairman, no further questions. I support this piece of legislation. Thank you, Director.
All right, thank you. Just real quick, if we could, it does say in here that it is for the original for police and fire in the summer. So
Is that for the age?
yes.
No, so that's because that code section is titled
Okay.
Age limits for police and fire. So
Okay.
section A is police, section B is fire. This only amends section A.
We got it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the clarification.
Absolutely.
All right, hearing no other questions, ordinance number 1300-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Last for safety is ordinance number 1340-2023 by Councilmembers Ballistic and Griffin. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the directors of public safety or law to apply for and accept grants from the County Public Safety and Justice Services for fiscal year 2023 Stop Violence Against Women Act VAWA program for a sexual assault advocate and for the law enforcement and prosecution components of the Cleveland Domestic Violence Program, and authorizing one or more contracts with the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center and other entities to implement the grant. I know we're joined here. Sorry, I had my mic off. We're also joined here by Prosecutor Aquila Jordan, and she can introduce the young lady from her office.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us here. Aquila Jordan, Chief Prosecutor for the City of Cleveland, and Deputy Prosecutor for Linda Powell.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed, Chief Director.
President, if I may, just take a moment before I go into the language of this legislation. I'm glad that Prosecutor Powell is here. Prosecutor Powell has been leading the City Prosecutor's Office effort on combating domestic violence for some time, and I just want her to take a moment and be recognized and thank her before this body for her hard work in representing victims of domestic violence in the Cleveland Municipal Court. Council to the President, the goal of the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA grant, as we refer to it, is to provide funding to enhance the investigation, prosecution, and victim advocacy of domestic violence, stalking, and sexual assault. The City of Cleveland will be reimbursed for costs associated with operating the Cleveland Domestic Violence Program. This is a partnership with Cleveland police detectives, Cleveland prosecutors, Cleveland Municipal Court, and victim advocates from the County Witness Victim Services. Cleveland will also be reimbursed for the costs associated with a victim advocate from the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center being assigned to the Police Sex Crimes Unit. I'll read the law enforcement portion, and I'll allow Prosecutor Jordan read the prosecution portion once we get there. The Cleveland Police Domestic Violence Unit detectives investigate and reports of DV, domestic violence, and stalking, and present them to the prosecutor. The detectives share an office at police headquarters with victim advocates, and the grant pays for the partial salaries of 2 detectives. The expenses to be reimbursed here include $173,276.30 for detectives, $4,500 for travel, that's the annual domestic violence conference, $3,698.06 for office supplies and bus tickets, for a total of $181,474.36. The grant award is $136,105.77 with matching funds of $45,368.59. The Cleveland Rape Crisis Center assigns a victim advocate full-time to the Police Sex Crimes Unit. They help sexual assault survivors traverse the justice system and locate any needed support. Here, the expenses to be reimbursed include $72,800 to the Rape Crisis Center, $1,343.21 for supplies, $1,260 for phone services. That's $75,403.21. The grant award is $56,552.41, with matching funds being $18,850.80, for a total projected amount of $75,403.21. I'll go to Prosecutor Jordan for the DV program prosecution funds.
The City of Cleveland Prosecutor's Office provides prosecutors who focus on charging and prosecuting domestic violence and its related crimes, i.e. menacing by stalking, aggravated menacing, and violation of protection orders, to provide specialized attention to this issue and specific concerns that arise with handling such cases and working with individuals affected by violence and abuse. This grant is used to pay all or portion of the salaries of prosecutors who continue to assist in the prosecution of domestic violence offenders in the City of Cleveland through the specialized program. Expenses to be reimbursed: personnel, $225,146.12 for prosecutors, law clerks, and staff; travel, $16,660 for the annual DV conference; supplies, $9,071.41 for office supplies, and $6,000 for printing of informational pamphlet, for a total projected cost of the grant award is $192,658.18. The matching funds are $64,219.39 for a projected amount of $256,877.57.
Mr. President, this is a grant period of January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. This is the 7th year we have received the sexual assault grant. We have received the domestic violence grant since 1997. Funding has been reduced at the federal level, but we are now receiving less than half of what we used to receive, but are processing more cases. And it's important to note this is President Biden was a critical proponent and introduced the VAWA grant that many years ago.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Polinsik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues. This is another piece under suspension. I've read it in detail. We have supported this in the past, and we've also had a good working relationship with the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center, who does a wonderful job on behalf of victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, so I wholeheartedly support it.
Thank you. Councilman Joe Jones.
Just for Mr. Chairman, on the numbers, just to make sure I'm looking at this correctly, when we break down these itemizations here, This is more than just one grant. This seems like several grants. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
No, so it's one grant, but it's broken up to support the major components of, I'm sorry, it's three grants. It is three grants broken up to support the major components of domestic violence at all levels. So you have the police force, the prosecution, and the victims advocate support. So
Right.
it is three grants.
And so with these grants, like the first one that we read off about the breakdown of the detectives, is in a grant amount awarded at $136,000, and is matched by the city with $45,000. Is that correct?
That's correct. Don, do I have that correct? Don Hartzell?
To the chair,
Okay. And then, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to go down, just make sure I'm on the same page before I ask some questions. So, Mr. Chairman, then we're looking at another grant awarded at $56,000, and the matching funds to go with that, which would bring it to $75,000, is $8,850.
18,850, 80 cents. Yes.
Correct. And then the next one is, Mr. Chairman, another grant for $192,000, and then we have $64,000 that's matching to it. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
That's correct.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, I see that, and I guess let me ask this question. You know, before in the past, we would, in the safety committees, we would ask the chief about the various different filling of different departments, and one of them was the sex trafficking unit. How many police officers do we have there? How does that work with the prosecutor, Jordan? How does that, do we get issues from that sent over to the prosecutor's office to deal with? How does that pipeline work?
To the chair, to the councilman, as you're aware, we do have detectives assigned to our sex crimes unit. Sex crime child abuse unit is what the full title is. And we have officers that work with our federal partners relative to sex trafficking. If we receive a complaint or we develop information that someone's being sex trafficked, we take that information, conduct our investigation. If there is a prosecution to be sought, we will confer with the city prosecutor's office for potential charges. And then if there are potential charges, we'll take it to the grand jury and so forth. But we start through our investigation and consult with the city prosecutor's office.
And do we handle that with, Mr. Chairman, with all domestic violence issues that happen in the city of Cleveland? Do that automatically get booked into, Mr. Chairman, to Mrs. Jordan's office?
So to the chair, to the councilman, yes, all of the domestic violence cases end up being screened through the City of Cleveland Prosecutor's Office. The City Prosecutor's Office has a strong relationship with the Sex Crimes Unit as well as the Domestic Violence Unit for CDP, but we also have a very strong relationship with the Human Trafficking Task Force, which is a countywide task force that looks at human trafficking. So we work well with all of those departments. We review their cases. When appropriate, we send it up to the County Prosecutor's Office. And when there's need for additional investigation, we also provide feedback to the detectives of what is additionally needed before we can forward the charges.
And does each district have their own person in it that deals with domestic violence?
To the chair, councilman, we have a domestic violence unit downtown. It's a centralized unit where all the domestic violence cases gets funneled to the detectives assigned to our domestic violence unit.
And do we have someone, Mr. Chairman, who is the contact person for that?
To the chair, yes, we have supervisors assigned there.
Do we know offhand so I can write it down?
Through the council, the chair, right now it will be Sergeant Adana Perez. She's the OIC of the Domestic Violence Unit. Also for the Sex Crimes Unit, the Sex Crimes and Child Abuse Unit, it would be Lieutenant Jason Schramm, SCHRAMM.
And he's dealing with, Donna Perez is dealing with domestic violence?
Adana Perez is the supervisor assigned for domestic violence, yes. And Lieutenant Schramm is the supervisor assigned for sex crimes and child abuse.
Mr. Chairman, I have no more questions. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1340-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to economic development. Two pieces from economic development. Oh, okay, we only got one. My fault. We only have one. And that is for 1345-2023. Actually, one they've asked to hold one. 1270, your team, your side asked to hold that.
To hold it?
Is that the City Club Apartments one? That's the only two I have. I have that one, and then I have the economic development package. It might be one more. See if it's one of those for introduction and passage. What is it? Is it in community development?
Tax incentive.
That's for this one, 1345.
Okay.
The other one is job creation incentive program, which is ordinance number, I don't see an ordinance number on here, but it was at the top of the agenda. It was not an addendum.
So which one are we on?
Income tax, that's what you're talking about.
That's,
Turk.
Which is tax incentive.
okay, see, hold on real quick. See what this is. What is that right there?
Oh, yeah, we do.
Okay, you got it? Okay, so it's for introduction to pass. Okay. All right, thank you. So we hear these two pieces. Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, great.
All right, first one we'll listen to is ordinance number 1345-2023, as amended by council members Harrison and Griffin, by departmental request an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to create the Job Creation Income Tax Credit Incentive Program to provide economic development incentives for the purpose of creating jobs and improving the economic welfare of the people of the city as authorized in ART Article 8, Section 13 of the Ohio Constitution. And before we go any further, there was an amendment. And the amendment that was made in Section 2, first paragraph, line 5, strike applicable and insert applicants. In line 6, after ordinances, insert the following: in compliance with the statutory requirement of the revised code, Section 718.15, each separate JCI tax credit program ordinance authorizing an agreement under this program shall include an incorporated file setting forth and specifying all the conditions of the credit being granted. At the end of the second paragraph, after council, insert every applicant must notify the council member in whose ward the affected business is located. In Section 2, insert a third paragraph to read as follows: each economic development agreement for JCI tax credit program shall first be authorized by an ordinance of council. In Section 3, at the end, strike the period after adjusted and insert comma, annually, in quotations. This was dated 11/30/23 by Stephanie Melnick. And we do have one other amendment that we want to proffer. And this is, if I'm going to need somebody else to do the amendment. I can't do the amendment, but we need an amendment to make sure that we include community benefits agreements in this new economic development tool.
I'll make,
As you know,
Mr. Chairman,
I'll make
so
that
moved.
motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend this ordinance 1345-23,
Second it.
and it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, if we can make sure that the attorney has this so that Mr. Shackner knows that we have the amendment that we want to put in there. Okay, we're back to the ordinance. The amendment carried. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jo Rose Bordeaux-Small. I'm the new Assistant Director of Economic Development. I am here in Director Tom McNair's space as he's ill today. And I have Kate with me here today to speak on this topic.
Yes, good morning to the committee. I do believe there was a slide deck for this one. I don't know if we have that available. Okay, and so while she works on that, we're here today to share legislation to create a new economic development incentive program here in the city. That's a job creation income tax incentive program. Some council members may be familiar with and remember the JSIP program, which relied on general fund dollars to provide incentives for employers who are creating new jobs or expanding in the city of Cleveland. But this incentive is designed as a tax credit, which has less impact on our general fund and allows us to use this as a tool to really attract businesses to the city. So I have some info on the previous JSIP program up on the slide so that you can kind of do a comparison. The JSIP program was eligible for businesses who were creating at least 25 new full-time jobs in the city. Those businesses would receive grants for up to 50% of new payroll taxes for up to 3 years. As I mentioned, they were paid for with general fund allocation dollars to the Economic Development Department. And they required support from ward council person, and we had to certify their payroll. For this new program that we're proposing, this is really targeted towards larger businesses that are creating upwards of 50 jobs. We are stipulating that all of those jobs must earn at least 100% of the city median income, which is currently $33,678 per year or $16.19 an hour, and that applicants may receive a tax credit for up to 50% of new payroll taxes for up to 5 years. And they receive those tax credits based on, out of the funds that are in the business's net profit return through CCA. So all of this will happen at CCA, who will issue the credit. The credit will be applied to all in-person jobs. We know that a lot of jobs increasingly are work from home. We're asking for those jobs to be at least 60% of hours worked in the city, and based on the returns that CCA receives, they can actually verify, how many hours are worked in the city and only issue the credit based on those hours worked in the city of Cleveland. CCA will also ensure that the businesses are compliant and up to date on their taxes, and that's required in order to receive the credit. So I'll leave this slide up and open it up to any questions the council members may have.
Okay, thank you. And I know we have a couple of members that are already on here, but just make sure that I understand this. The reason that you guys are doing this is because pretty much the VPI money and some of the other grants and other tools we used to use are pretty much expired. So you kind of need a new tool, and this gives you a little bit more flexibility as well. Is that the reason why you're implementing this?
To the chair, this tool does create more flexibility because it is not reliant on general fund dollars. When the department would enter into a JSIP agreement, it would sort of tie up or obligate those funds for 3 years, and that would be on the department's books, and the department had to be very discerning about which businesses to incent with this tool. With this, we intend to market it really broadly to any business that wants to create 50-plus jobs in the city. And so it's, I think, a more powerful tool for the city.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to pivot to Mr. Slife, and then, first and foremost, Councilman Hairston. This was passed out of DPS. Did you have any comments or remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No further questions. I think this is a good program. I like this way better than the JSIP program that we currently have, which, by the way, that expired. So the administration would need a new authorization ordinance to bring that program back. But nonetheless, I think this program is great. This can really be a good benefit and an attraction for businesses to create new jobs in our community. And the committee passed this and fully supportive.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I have Councilman Slife and Councilman Jones.
Thank you. like Councilman Hairston, I think this is an intriguing direction to go. I guess I just have one potential question and maybe hang up. But begin with a question through the chair to the department on existing, first of all, I believe economic development incentives aren't ideal, but they're sort of a necessary evil. If we don't do them, others will do them. If the federal government wants to especially outlaw interstate, intermunicipal economic development incentives, the economy would probably be the better for it, but here we are, one city in a larger system, so we need to be relevant within this field. But that being said, I don't want to feel that we're selling ourselves short or giving away the farm. So the question is, and then I'll follow up with it, on existing economic development incentives, do we have any data on the average hourly wages for incentives that are active or have been active over a period of time? And how does that contrast with what's in Section 3 for the 100% of city median income household?
Director?
Household income, sorry.
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't have any data like that handy, but as part of reporting for the program, businesses did need to provide their wage information. So I believe we could go back and get some of that information for you. In terms of, sort of how we were contemplating or thinking about what the appropriate wage would be here, that we're thinking of this really as the floor, it's the minimum of what we want businesses to provide to create good jobs in the city, and recognize that any job would require that as the minimum. That's not sort of like the average that would be coming in from these jobs.
Sure, thank you. My suspicion is that the average income is well north of that to date. I suppose I want to have a conversation and think for a moment, do we need to pull ourselves out of the 82 square miles of Cleveland? Cleveland's a very poor city, and I don't say this with any point of pride. Ward 17 has the highest median household income, but it's actually the same as the counties. So I say that because I think that underscores the degree of the scale of low-income households concentrated in the city of Cleveland, and I don't want to unintentionally be kind of exacerbating poverty when the truth is that $33,000 is not a lot of money, and I don't know if it's the 100% we should aspire to. I'm wondering if it would make more sense, whether it's in the legislation or something that we have in the back of our heads as these projects come forward, that the median household income for Cuyahoga County, I believe, is about $55,000. So that starts to put us more on track of what it requires to be average income within our larger region, within our larger economy. And I want to, I guess, put that on the table because I don't want to be selling ourselves short. And I would suspect, so that's about $26 an hour. I'm sure, and I'm open to everything, like if there's like a special case in a small business and a waiver, but we know most businesses are probably paying $26,000 an hour if they're coming to the city of Cleveland seeking finance. And if we need to have a conversation about kind of the smaller mom and pops that maybe are struggling to get up to that threshold, we can have that. I worry about setting ourselves too low of an artificial threshold. I feel as if I'm rambling. I don't know if I'm offering a specific solution within the legislation, but I want us to keep our eye open as we move forward about how we're holding companies towards what really is a regional average income and not just a city of Cleveland average income.
Did you want to respond? Because that's actually a good point.
I think through the chair, I appreciate the point, and I think if there needs to be further conversation about the right threshold, that was a question we talked through at committee as well, and happy to continue the conversation there.
Okay. Well, let's do this if we could, because I think Councilman brings up a good point. We need. I got you. Do you want on that point or after Councilman? Okay. So before I go to Councilman Jones, while we're on that point, I'll hear Councilwoman House's point.
Yeah, this was something through the chair to the team that we have here. That was something that I was bringing up when we had this conversation. And so I do think that as Councilman Slife had brought up, I just do think we just need to change it, right? Just put it out there what we want, because again, these numbers are too low, and I do not think we should incentivize people for poverty wages, that we know you cannot live a sustainable life. And I know people are saying, well, that's the minimum, but again, we should not, I think our minimums that are rooted in those that we know will be struggling, I do not think that's where we should continue to go, and really encourage an environment where we are incentivizing what we know can truly are family sustaining wages, where you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. And if we're going to do with our money, and then I'll ask a follow-up question after Councilman Jones. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to start my questions out. I got a couple of these questions to ask. The first one is impact analysis of the last program that we had for job creation that was authorized in 2005. Do we know how many businesses we were able to help with this incentive program that we're now going to upgrade to a new one?
Through the chair to the councilperson, I don't have those numbers handy. Again, I assume we can go back and look at data on the past program and see how many businesses took advantage of it and provide that to you, if that's of interest.
I am interested, Mr. Chairman. A lot of times we are very supportive of the various tools in the toolbox, so to speak. We pass these pieces of legislation, but we really never get like a briefing on just how impactful, if they're working, if they're not working, how many businesses we were able to bring into the city of Cleveland. And the reason why I bring this up, Mr. Chairman, to the administration is because we're seeing other cities really grow by leaps and bounds. I don't know of all the incentives and tools that some of them may be using. I don't know if we have an opportunity to go take a look at best practices in other cities and maybe able to utilize some of their incentives or not. And I can open that up if you do. If you could talk a little bit about that, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, to the distinguished lady.
Through the chair to the councilman, I'm glad to share that we have an ongoing engagement with a consultant, Baker Tilly, that is doing the exact work that you just said on behalf of the city. They're looking at really all of the incentive tools in our toolbox, looking at best practices across other cities, bringing us, examples of things that we should consider as a city, be they new tools or tweaking our eligibility requirements or tweaking our interest rates or things along those lines. They will be providing recommendations like that to the department so that we can make a really informed decisions about how to position Cleveland for growth, which is really our goal.
And Mr. Chairman, like one of the things that, and this is just to put out here, is when we look at, for an example, the storefront renovation program, and this will go into some of my colleagues' line of questions that he's talking about in terms of living wage incentives. The storefront renovation program has not worked in the east side of the city of Cleveland. Part of the reason why is because there's so many restrictions that are part of that program because it's ran out of federal dollars, and it makes it almost impossible for mom and pop stores to even participate. Even when it comes to living wages, they can't afford to do that. Then you have all of these other pieces that are added on top of that they have to perform in terms of testing and soil sampling and so on, et cetera. And it can get kind of lengthy for them, just for them to get back maybe $15,000 or $20,000 if they've invested, $45,000, $50,000 or $60,000. So it's almost been impossible to rehabilitate the southeast side commercial districts. So I don't know if you guys have some, or with this. I know this is job creation here, but do you have some kind of program that can help be able to do that?
Through the chair to the councilman. So first of all, the storefront renovation program, I think, as you're aware, is run out of the Department of Community
I know that.
Development. And the Department of Community Development has also been involved with our incentive review that we've been doing with Baker Tilly. So all of these things are on our radar. I would also add that through a couple of different ARPA pieces, there is going to be some targeting of commercial corridors, which I think will assist small businesses in kind of the way that you're speaking about. So a lot of those contracts are moving through right now, and those dollars should be hitting the street next year. And I'm really hopeful about the impact that that can have for our small businesses in a way that is a little more flexible than some of our programs have historically been.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I would just, because I've talked to a number of business people who have their own crews and systems in place. So having this program incentive as relates to I don't know what was said, but
That's just karma, don't feel bad.
Is it?
Go ahead, Councilman.
So I would say, Mr. Chairman, that we should be sort of flexible when it comes to the program as relates to cost incentives and allowing for existing contractors who already have their cruises and work to be able to do that at this here standing wage of $16.19, or have some flexibility, because I heard the term $26. But a lot of times when it comes to mom and pop stores, they can't afford these prices. They have their own teams that do stuff, that continue to do stuff. We need to have some flexibility, because at the end of the day, Mr. Chairman, it is about improving the city of Cleveland. And if some of these incentives prevent businesses from being able to do that, you'll have what you have. Neighborhoods that have the wherewithal to improve will go ahead and move forward, versus the ones that just won't be able to make that. And then lastly, Mr. Chairman, on this particular piece, if a project is being put in a particular council person's ward, is it written the same way as it was in the previous legislation, upon a council person's approval, as well as a letter of approval to the project?
Ms. Warren.
Through the chair to the councilman, I believe that's what the amendment was speaking to. So yes, so we'll notify the council members, get approval, and each agreement will come back to council for approval per state law.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further questions. I yield the floor.
Thank you. And if you look at it, she's right, it is in the amendment, so, okay. All right, Councilwoman House Jones.
Thank you. So this is a very good conversation. So I guess this was, they say by the numbers. So we just got to buy the numbers from Policy Matters that talked about since 1979, there has been only a 4% increase in wages, although worker productivity has increased by 76%. Right? There is a significant increase in how productive workers now are commensurate to what they are being paid. And that is just a point of issue. I just do not, so I'm gonna just make an amendment if it works or not. I do think we need to consider, and I would hope that this body can consider moving of this incentive program, moving it to the median income of Cuyahoga County, and not based on what currently is poverty wages. And so that's why I would like to just, for the body to consider, what is this? Move to amend, what is this? Where is this? Okay, so this is move to amend ordinance 1345, 2023 into Section 3, where we would move this within city boundaries with compensation at or above 100% within the Cuyahoga County median household income. And I can get the number to this, but I think it should be Cuyahoga County versus the city of Cleveland median income, because I just think we need to incentivize people making family-sustaining wages and incentivizing that and not poverty wages. And regardless if you are a small business or a big business, the after impact impacts the city of Cleveland. Everything from the food banks that we give, everything from housing assistance, everything from child care assistance, all those things fall on the government if people are not being paid family sustaining wages. And I really think this is something that we should move forward if we're going to give this level of incentive to a business. So,
Mr. Shatner, do you have the amendment?
Yes, sir. So with compensation at or above 100% for at Cuyahoga County medium income.
yes.
And should I cross out currently defined as or?
Yes, you have the, or just we can update it. I can get the actual number. Yeah, so because I saw two different numbers. It's either $55,132 or $55,109, and so I just need to clarify what that is.
Okay, and do we have a second on Councilwoman House's motion? Okay, we have the move, it's been moved and seconded. Now we'll move into discussion, and while I know that they're looking at for some guidance from the chiefs to see if this will have any adverse impact, Councilman Harsh and then Councilman Jones and then Councilman McCormick.
I'm up.
Yes.
Mr. President, I just would comment on Councilwoman House Jones' amendment. While I completely agree with the spirit and the intent of raising wages for families in Cleveland, I would be concerned, and I would encourage my colleagues to think about this. The goal here is to spur more economic development by getting new jobs to locate in the city of Cleveland. My concern would be that by using county median salaries, we're skipping a bunch of employers who wouldn't locate here anyway, because they don't plan to pay those wages to begin with. They would go ahead and set up their shop outside the city because they would no longer be able to take advantage of the tax credit. And I would submit to my colleagues, the concept here is to entice new businesses to the city. And while Councilwoman House Jones is entirely correct about how inflation has outpaced wages for workers, we have been on the bottom end of that spectrum for many decades as well. And our goal here with the administration, who I agree with this proposal as it came to us today, is to entice more jobs to the city, which can have a snowball effect of support. So I would encourage my colleagues to consider the proposal as it was brought to us today, see how it goes, and if it's working so well that we think there's ways to push the ceiling up or push the floor up by changing from city median to county median, we could consider that later. But I would encourage folks to vote no on the amendment and accept the proposal as it was brought to us today.
I will just share through the chair to all the council members raising these points. You know, we do have a couple of agreements in the pipeline that we'll be bringing through, and I think provide a good example here of perhaps jobs that are high quality in the food service industry, but pay more than this median income, but less than the county median income that is being proposed as an amendment. So I think maybe there's a compromise to be struck here, because I think we could agree that for a lot of people, a $20 an hour job is a high quality job, or is higher quality than some of the jobs that are moving into the city. So I think maybe there's some more discussion to be had about the threshold.
Okay. Councilman Jones?
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question would be, what's the hourly rate for the county? We're looking at the city at 33. What is the county's average? Do we know?
Does anybody have that information?
I heard it's $26.50. Is that correct?
Does anybody have that information?
I don't have it at my fingertips.
So,
go ahead, Councilman.
So with that, if, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, how would that fit in if this is agreed upon by the body? How would this impact this piece here, moving it from $16 an hour to maybe $26 an hour?
Through the chair to the councilman, it would limit the the businesses and types of industries that we could attract based on the wages that they're able to provide. I think there's a high likelihood that some of the businesses that pay in that $20 to $26 an hour range would not be moved to create jobs in the city of Cleveland.
And then, Mr. Chairman, looking at other cities around us that have job creation incentive programs, how does this match up with them?
Through the chair to the councilman, I'm not sure of those parameters in other cities. I know there are other cities that do job creation income tax incentive programs. Columbus is one example that I recall, but I don't have their eligibility requirements handy.
It would be interesting, Mr. Chairman, to see what those other cities' incentives are. As I would agree with my colleague Chris Harsh and bringing his presentation, though, it is, the county may have a $26 an hour, but of course, many people who live in the city of Cleveland don't make the kind of money people make outside the county. And then also, Mr. Chairman, just something to consider, we don't get even the investments from our financial institutions paying into our city like they pay outside the city of Cleveland. So, Mr. Chairman, I would just, if we could get that information, I would be uncomfortable with passing a resolution unless I can see what other city incentives are to see if we are in a competitive space. And I would tend, Mr. Chairman, to agree with my distinguished colleague, Chris Harsh.
Okay. Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to, just a couple things. Number one, remind folks that each and every one of these agreements requires council authority. So if an agreement comes forward and this council feels that the wages are too low, we can reject it. So I just want to put that out there. Each of the agreements has to come through this body. So we do have the authority to say, we're not comfortable with the wage range on this platform, on this proposal, therefore we're rejecting this proposal, number one. Number two, we amended an ordinance last week to ensure that community benefits agreements are a part of these agreements as well. So those will have to be a part of these conversations. My concern with saying that a minimum of $56,000 qualifies for this is that what will happen historically will continue to happen, and that is jobs will be located in Solon, in Avon Lake, in Garfield Heights, and our residents will be forced to figure out a way to get out there. And so everyone wants the highest paid jobs as possible. The UAW did a great job of showing how unions can really push wages up, and I think we should all be supportive of that work. At the same time, number one, we have built-in checks here with the additional legislative authority needed for each and every single one of these agreements. And the other part, too, is that I think we need to do whatever we can to ensure that jobs are being located in the city core, because for decades we've been bleeding them to places that our residents cannot access. And then the final thing I'll say, Mr. President, is I gotta say, number one, we have the legislative authority backdrop, but I also trust that the administration, it's one of their priorities to have the highest paid jobs as possible for our residents. I would imagine that is the case. I'll confirm that through our director and our special assistant, that is the objective of the administration. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, absolutely. And I will also say that as part of applying for this program, businesses will have to lay out the different positions that they'll be hiring, how many, what the salary ranges are for those positions. So we'll have a sense of the full scope of what a business is trying to do at the time that they're applying, and then we'll be able to confirm that on the back end.
Thank you. So I guess I don't want us to put a kind of a arbitrary ceiling on this job and box ourselves out of jobs that may come in at 50 grand and that just won't apply for this program because we've set a ceiling. I think if this council says we want these jobs coming in at a certain rate, we can do that through our legal authority to sign off on these. So that's just my 2 cents.
So just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying instead of just having a blanket ordinance that you think we should look at this at a case-by-case basis?
Correct.
And
That's
then
correct.
make amendments based upon each individual?
Or reject them. if we get a proposal that we don't think is suitable, reject it.
Okay.
I just don't think, I think we should take them case by case. You said it best.
Councilman Harsh?
For clarification of my colleague, we made that amendment in DPS, correct?
Correct.
So the current proposal does require council sign-off for their ward before
Yes.
it can go into. So if the council feels like it's too low, just to clarify, we already made that amendment.
Yes.
So,
That's in here.
It's already.
so bottom line, it was an amendment put on the floor and seconded, so we're discussing that. Councilwoman House, did you have any final remarks before we figure out what we want to do? Because you offered the amendment.
No. I'm just saying, I just think, again, while we want to attract companies here, what are you attracting? What are we actually attracting? Where do people live? How do people afford childcare? Like, these are the number one issues. When you look at the global pandemics, in particularly the amount of women that have had to drop out of the workforce, it is solely based on compensation. People are not getting paid enough to feed their families, be housed, and pay for childcare. That's it. We are back now to in the 70s when you look at women in the workforce. And if we don't get serious, so you can attract the companies here, but you ain't gonna have nobody work here. That's why right now, even in the city of Cleveland, we can't attract people. So again, I do think we should also use the body of evidence, and it should be able to be presented, as Councilman Jones had brought up. What were the results of the job incentives that have already been done for the city of Cleveland? We get up here, we talk about it, but none of that information is actually presented to us in any type of comprehensive manner. But it's like, well, trust us, we're going to do something different and better this time around. And I just again, we see where all this has gotten us thus far. So,
So I do want to make this statement, because I'm starting to get some calls and texts in, is that, people are already saying that this will actually kill a couple of deals that are on the table already, which is, I think Councilman McCormick's point is that if we do something like this on the front end, it'll be a non-starter with a couple of these things. And I hear what you're saying, Councilwoman, but I do think that, just out of curiosity, I do think that we have the ability that we've given ourselves in this amendment to council, that we still can affect those deals like you were talking about, because I totally agree with you that we have to attract more higher paid wage jobs. But, I also am a little bit fearful that if we create a floor, that's all people are going to try to hit. They're not going to try to do more and try to put more in a community benefits package that we may be trying to get more than just those wages. So that's just something to think about. But Councilman Slight, before we move forward.
Yeah, I think this is a great discussion, honestly. And I know I sort of dropped this bomb, so mea maxima culpa. But I guess, as much as I want to support this amendment, I think I'm leaning towards no, only because I don't understand the ramifications of all of it as it moves forward. I think, though, it is really incumbent on this body to two things. One, as Councilman McCormick said, to hold these companies responsible. Like, I don't know if I'm interested in approving anything under $20 an hour. Like, there's wiggle room between 16 and 26, right? And just because of that difference, I'm not sure of the value of $26 an hour versus $25.50. There's a lot there. So I think we need to do that work and do it well. But I think the other thing that I think we just need to keep in the back of our minds is kind of what I had led with, that Cleveland, we're on every list of large city poverty. And I think sometimes we forget that median income in the city of Cleveland is an abnormality. When we talk about housing programs and we talk about wanting to adjust it to median income for city of Cleveland residents, that is, we need to recognize that people making as little money as too many Clevelanders do is not something to peg ourselves against in the design of any program. And I just worry sometimes that we have to separate ourselves from any given moment and realize how we exist in the ecosystem, what has been the consequence of this region really concentrating all of its challenges in our municipality, and what our role is in kind of breaking people out of that.
All right, let me state this if I could. Councilwoman Spencer. Here's what I would respectfully ask, because this seems like a more involved conversation, and I do think that Councilwoman House brings up a very good point, but what I don't want to do is put forth something that gets voted down now and we don't have a serious conversation about what she's brought up and how we can do this without doing this in a way that it can have unintended consequences. But I do think what she is bringing up is very essential and important that we have a broader based conversation, but I also don't want to put us in a position to have unintended consequences and potentially kill deals that are already on the table because of this, because we do this amendment in this setting. So I would respectfully ask if you can set up some time with the Community Development Committee and anybody on the Community Development team. That's my position, or what I would prefer as a council president, because if I'm starting to look at the votes right now, I'm looking at it to be 50-50, and I just think that what she's bringing up is so important that I wouldn't want to try to roll the dice on getting it shot down now because it's too important what she's saying. We do have to find a way to have better paying jobs, but we also may not know enough about this to have unintended consequences. That's my thoughts, but Councilwoman Spencer, and then I'll let Councilwoman House weigh in from there.
I think I'm just following your point, Council President, which is that there might be a number, and we need to know what that number is. And it sounds like around $20. I mean, based on this discussion, $20 an hour seems more like where we want to be headed than what's being presented currently. But
Councilwoman.
Based on this conversation, I'm going to be a nice team player and withdraw my amendment. With that being said, though, I do think that it's not just about saying, when people are talking about deals and people are talking about the wages that we are saying that we want to be open to City of Cleveland residents, and then that's always goes into the thought is, when a job comes, how many City of Cleveland residents actually even work at that company? That's the one thing. And then two, thinking about how do people actually do it? Because if you are paying a $20 an hour job, again, where do you actually live? Where do your kids, if you have kids, most people do, who's taking care of them and the like? I think those are real conversations, and just saying it's not my responsibility. The City of Cleveland, at the end of the day, it ends up being the City of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and the state of Ohio's responsibility when people don't have things that, ends meet. So I will withdraw my amendment at this time, and we'll wait to see what the conversation looks like moving forward.
Thank you, Council Lady, but I do want to make sure, if you can, we need to have that broader conversation with the chair of DPS and also Councilwoman House, because I do want us to find that sweet spot, because that'll help us as we're looking at negotiating on numbers. Okay, Councilman Jones, we got to move on to the next
Just want to
piece.
add
We got
on,
a
Mr.
lot
Chairman,
going on.
just
Yes, sir.
quickly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a point of deference here on this issue. We talked earlier about, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, you're looking at best practices. Just if you guys could look in Nashville and see what their best practices are, I am overwhelmed with the amount of development that's happening there, and now I've seen a drastic expansion from 27 cranes 2 years ago to now like 35 different cranes up there. So I would like to know, Mr. Chairman, what's causing that explosion, and what kind of practices do they have in play? I was told that maybe the governmental system changed somehow, so I don't know what that means, but it would be really nice to see what they're doing there, and if there's some practices there and incentives there that they're bringing these businesses in and doing this kind of development, would love to see what that looks like.
So I just spent a few days with the council president for Nashville. I'd be more than happy to help you with that, as also in the chair that I have with the Finance Administration and Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. So we'll work with policy team and see some of the tools they have, okay? All right, thank you. I don't see any more questions, and the amendment has been tabled. So ordinance number 1345-2023 as amended stands approved. Please sign on. And now we'll go to 1392. Please follow up with Councilwoman House, because I'll be honest with you, she brought up a very good point that we do have to grapple with, okay? All right. Ordinance number 1392-2023 by Councilmembers Harrison and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the Tax Incentive Review Council's year 2022 recommendations. And once again, this is for introduction and consideration for passage on the entire floor tonight. This is the Turk legislation that we pretty much do every year. So please proceed. It's for introduction and discussion, so it should be there. Go ahead, please.
Hello. My name is Dan Rehor. I'm the fiscal manager for economic development. The piece that you have in front of you, just to give you some history behind the program, the Turk, what you have in front of you is on an annual basis, any municipality in Collier County that has an enterprise zone tax abatement program, on an annual basis, Collier County will contact that municipality, hold an annual meeting with its committee to go over the summary of the performance of the active tax abatement agreements that are in place. In August of '23, that annual meeting was held for the city of Cleveland with the chairperson from Collier County. There were 12 active tax abatement, commercial tax abatement agreements in place as of 12/31/22 that were reviewed. Out of those 12, compliance is deemed 75% of the contractual achievement of both the project cost contractually that was in the agreement, as well as 75% of total jobs created at the site of the tax abatement. So 9 out of the 12 were in complete compliance with both the investment as well as the job creation. One agreement was terminated. It was the tax abatement relating to the 105th Cedar Partners. IBM moved out during 21-22 due to the pandemic. It was agreed that that agreement would be terminated since there was no jobs on site. Everyone went remote, as we all remember during that time period. So both parties, the city of Cleveland and the recipient, agreed to the termination of that benefit. The two that were not in compliant for jobs, it was the job creation that was short. The Neon at the old East Side Market, they ended up having one job short of the 75% requirement. They needed 19, they're at 18. I think importantly, the last 2 years prior to that, they were in compliance and didn't meet the requirement. So the committee as a whole recommended that we allow and continue the abatement for 22. The other out of compliance was the LaSalle project. LaSalle. If you look at the recommendation, LaSalle AMC TCL, it's at 819. It's over at East 185th Street.
We can get it. Can you get that for them, Joe? The information on all that texting. We get that for you.
They had a.
So what are you trying to get?
I don't know if there's any other handouts.
No.
No, it's just the,
That's
it's
it.
just their recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
It's, again, they had a requirement of 7, they created 3, and since that meeting, the property was sold. Right now, the current owner is in negotiations with Director McNair. What the city of Cleveland is going to be deciding shortly is to allow assignment of the tax abatement agreement to the new property owner. This agreement with LaSalle ends, and Councilman, I believe it's in your ward, the abatement agreement goes through tax year 28. So everyone involved would like to see that agreement just be assigned, and that was their recommendation. I will say that this program is a successful program as a tool. There's only 12 in place right now. Out of those 12 agreements, the total payroll at the sites were close to $54 million. And when you equate the 2.5% of payroll tax, it created $1.4 million of additional payroll taxes to the city of Cleveland coffers. The actual portfolio of those 12 created 110% of the required total job creation. It's a useful tool. It's an as-needed tool, and will be. And again, what you're accepting is the Turk Committee's recommendations to allow the 11 of the 12 for continuation into 23, and we did terminate the one. So next year you'll see the 11.
All right, thank you. Councilman Hairston.
Mr. Chair, thank you to Ms. Rehor for the for providing that information to us. As the chairman indicated, this is something we do every year.
Correct.
And I fully support the committee's recommendation. They thoroughly vet each of these projects along with the department and have no unreadiness as relates to support today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Polensek.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I support the legislation as well. As Dan indicated, the La Salle project, I mean, it was an event center, so I don't have to tell you what happened as a result of the COVID, the economy, et cetera. But they have attempted to comply with all their other provisions. And again, we have asked that the tax abatement be reassigned to the new owner of the property. So I think it's going to be successful in light of all the challenges that we have. So I certainly support the legislation.
All right, thank you so much. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1392-2023 will be heard for a full consideration tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bring safety back up. We have ordinance number 1389-2023 by Councilmembers Polensek and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to enter into one or more contracts with the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County to provide licensed social workers, or similar professionals for the city's police and mental health co-responder program for the Department of Public Safety as authorized under ordinance number 894-2022, passed November 7th, 2022, for a period not to exceed 5 years. Director, or Chief.
What's that number on that one? Oh, yeah.
Mr. Walko.
That's that
All right.
walk-on, okay.
Go ahead, Chief.
To the chair, yes. This ordinance says, as you stated before, if approved by council, this legislation will authorize the Director of Public Safety to enter into one or more contract with the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County to provide licensed social workers, or similar professionals for the city's police and mental health co-responder program as authorized by ordinance number 894-02022. The city's police and mental health co-responder program is a partnership between police, mental and behavioral health agencies, advocates, and a community that seeks to achieve the common goals of safety, understanding the service to individuals in crisis, those with behavioral health issues, and their families. This contract will provide social workers for the co-responders team to respond in a collaborative manner to handle both live calls and to follow up on incidents in which they were not on the original scene. They will provide assistance, assess the situation, and refer to persons to various mental health agencies. The anticipated cost of these services is approximately $465,232.65 over the term of the contract. These services are critical to provide the professional assistance and understanding to individuals in crisis and to direct them to the agencies that can provide further assistance to those individuals and their families. Okay. The director will take over from there. Okay. Okay.
All right. So, Councilman Polensek.
Mr. Chairman, we had discussed this briefly in the past, especially as it pertains to ordinance number 894-22. I would hope sometime within the near future, the director can sit down, because I do have some questions and concerns as it pertains to the mechanics of it, how it actually is going to work out there in the field. We passed legislation earlier today authorizing the purchase of the vehicles for the individuals, the SUVs, but I'm still not clear actually how it's going to work in the field. Is it going to be deployed on all shifts? What's the deployment going to look like? We were told initially they would be physically located at the district houses. I don't know if that's going to still be the same, but I need to get $4.4 million is a lot of money. And I need to get a better explanation because I would have liked this to have gone to committee, but the administration, and again, as the president, as the chairman indicated, council president, we're trying to accommodate these requests, especially where we believe they're critical. But I need to get a better understanding as it pertains to the implementation, and I'll look forward to the director and the chief sitting down with me, either privately, and I would ask Councilman Jones to be a part of that, and or at the committee at some point to get a better explanation and presentation as how you're going to implement it. Okay?
If I may, Chair, through the President to the rest of the body of council, is that absolutely, I think that it's would be beneficial for all, for the members here at the table, myself, the Chief, Don Hartson, members of the Adams Board, and some of the officers who oversee our co-response work, to come and explain the benefit of it to the citizens and how it works. We welcome that opportunity, Chair.
Good. Thank you.
All right, looking forward to that. Thank you so much. Seeing no questions, Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you. I'm going to defer to the Safety Committee Chair here, but is there a reason we're doing this as a walk-on piece today, knowing that so much discussion or important discussion is needed?
I'll let the director respond. There was an issue with timing.
It's timing.
It's an issue. It's an issue with timing. We've had some conversations with the Adams Board. We had to go back out for an RFP, even though that we were already working with them. That was one of the conditions of the grant, and that kind of really put us up against the clock, going through that lengthier process that the grant required. The Adams Board is a valuable partner. They've already been working with us, and again, they provided the most proper and what am I trying to say? Detailed explanation of the services that they would provide, and they knew where we were going. So that's why it was that timeline, Councilwoman.
Safety, though. All right, anything else? Okay, Councilman Jones.
Mr. Chairman, certainly I yield to my colleague and chairman of the Safety Committee, that they will come back, and I'm not opposed to passing this piece, but I do want to just, because for the television audience who are here, one of the things that is really important is that a lot of people don't know, Mr. Chairman, to the director, this increase in pay for police officers. So, I just want to put a plug there because we need to get more police on. If the director can talk about that increase in incentives that have been put in place for the police to be hired in the city of Cleveland.
Can we do this? Because that is an entire new, that's not a miscellaneous and just a touch and go.
But at some point.
I think, if we could, we work through it the chair and you could do an entire process on that, okay?
Right, because I think, and the only reason why I'm saying it, Mr. Chairman, because I've been working hard to try to get young people to be police officers in the city of Cleveland.
So myself and Councilman Polinsik met with the marketing firm last week, and the marketing firm is going to be reaching out and talking with all of you all as well. So I would encourage all of us to make sure we engage them, okay?
And Chief Abunama is best equipped to speak to that.
Okay, great. All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1389-2023 will be considered by the full council tonight. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go to 1391 and 1286, which are community and economic development. $12.86. All right, so first up, we will go to, director is here, so I'll hear her piece first, but Ordinance number 1286-2023 by council members Harrison and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Community Development to enter into one or more grant agreements with various entities to assist with the Lead Safe program using a portion of the city's coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund as authorized under ordinance number 119-2022 passed May 23rd, 2022 as amended by ordinance number 995-2022 passed October 24th, 2022. Director and commissioners. Directors? 1286. Welcome aboard. Okay, so
Hi there, I've got Felicia Mays here, who will speak to this piece briefly.
please do.
Yes, thank you, Council. This piece will allow us to strategically implement approval processes for programs, or rather the projects that we would otherwise not be able to
Is this not
work on.
No.
Due to certain issues like income issues for the lead abatement projects, or rising material costs and whatnot. So by adding these funds on top of the lead program funds that we already have from HUD, we will have some latitude in order to braid those into.
Thank you so much. So this was something that was already previously discussed with ARPA funds and that $17 million that went to a few different places. This is giving us the authority to contract for, to enter into contracts with our contractors, with our contracting pool. And in this way, we will be able to more seamlessly, as was mentioned, seamlessly blend those funding sources. HUD gives us a cap, and when it's difficult to go above that cap, and so this more flexible funding source will allow us to do that.
Great. And just out of curiosity, the Lead Safe, our partners are aware of this and working with us on this?
So this is actually, Chairman, this is going through community development, and so this supplements our programs that we are already doing in-house, those HUD programs.
Got you.
And not the larger coalition, although it is a part of the larger coalition dollars that went out. This was just some that was kept aside for community development for this purpose.
Got you. Councilman Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the director and staff indicated, this will allow them to utilize the dollars in their department to help achieve at a greater level some of the issues that they may run across when they go into a home. This was fully discussed and vetted at our DPS meeting, and it was recommended for approval. No further questions.
Okay. Seeing no other questions. Councilman Valencia.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, whoever can answer from the administration or who's over here at the table. I've been trying to educate myself as best as I can about this, and I've been reading all this stuff. What I was not clear on, and maybe someone could touch on, there was this threat to go to the ballot on the lead program, and what was that about?
I don't even know.
I mean, from my observation, the council, we gave the administration all the authority and the funds to do the lead abatement program, and then there was this threat that somehow it wasn't working or not working, it was ineffective, and there's going to be this threat to go to the ballot. Would anyone care to comment on that?
Mike, I would
by
tell
clash?
You, I would just be honest with you, Mike. I'm just going to be careful. I think it was somebody who just doesn't Every time they get a chance to try to blame council for something, they just threw that out there. And I don't think it was any rhyme or reason to that, because in asking around, and I did the same
Yeah.
thing, nobody can tell me what that was about.
Yeah, because from Mr. Chairman, we've done everything we've been asked to do here at the table. And I know the council president's been very passionate about this, other members have been. And that's why I kept thinking, is there something missing? Is there something that didn't happen that needed to happen? Not that anybody can allude to. Okay, well, that's all I need to know. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, I just want to clear something up. Is this part of the 17 million that was allocated to the Lead Safe Coalition, or is this in addition to that?
Through the chair, this is a part of that.
This is part of the 17 million.
And it was set aside for this specific purpose.
Okay.
Where we are not able to get whatever we need accomplished through our HUD funds. But what we did not have at the time were our list of contractors and our rotation pool. And so now we come back to you for that reason, so that we can go ahead and contract and get these dollars out the door.
All right, and then 450,000 is for a specific hotspot area, and then there's 450,000 allocated for the rest of the city. Mr. Chairman, to the director, how do you determine where a hotspot area is? How do you evaluate where an area is that is a hotspot, no matter where it is in the city?
Yeah. I don't know if you can answer that better, Karen.
Good afternoon, everybody. There's a lot of data that comes out of CASE, that comes out of Cuyahoga County. Not only the number of elevated blood level children, but and it kind of relates to
Hold the microphone close.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. It relates to the amount of rental units, low-income rental units, and correlates to how many lead elevated children are. That's usually what we call a hot spot. From the health department's point of view, it is definitely what areas are the highest, where we're having to go out and do more inspections.
Mr. Chairman, to the presenter, so you use external data to
Yes.
determine the
Yes.
internal hotspots, correct?
And I will add on there that, so HUD has a targeted grant that is specific to the Glenville area, that is through the mechanisms that they already, they developed. I will be honest, that part of lead is not what community development does. We do the remediation of it, and we try to get as many funds to do that as possible.
And this is going for rehabs
Yes.
of occupied homes?
Through the chair, yes.
Correct.
Yes.
I mean, you all kind of looked at each other like, uh-oh.
No,
Nope, making sure.
through the chair, it's for
It's a lot of
occupied
programs.
homes as well as vacant homes in the specific target areas.
But part of that is citywide, right? So it's
Yes,
for-
and
I
that's
mean,
purely, you see that breakdown, and that's just, as the director said, that's just because we have a citywide grant, and we also have a targeted Glenville high-impact grant as well.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1286-2023 stands approved. We have one more ordinance, ordinance number 1391-2023 by council members Harrison and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the director of community development to apply for and accept a grant from the Ohio Department of Development for the Lead Safe Ohio program, and authorizing the director to enter into one or more contracts with various contractors, lead safe, certified lead contractors, agencies, entities, or individuals to implement the grant. Director.
Thank you so much. So I will let my partners in building and housing speak to this specifically. LEAD is one of those programs that goes across the city, and so that is why you see us here together at the table. And so without further ado.
Thank you, Director Hernandez. Through the chair to all. This is an opportunity that presented itself from the state of Ohio, ODOD money. So these are ARPA funds from the state which 4.9 million has been earmarked for the city of Cleveland. Thanks to our friend here, Karen Dittmer, for her advocacy and working with ODOD for many, many months to get us to this point. That being said, we also believe that we may be the beneficiary of additional funds that other people can't spend. And so we're envisioning these funds and working very collaboratively with our partners in the Community Development Department to launch a window and door incentive program citywide. And the idea there is that, we want to proactively replace the components that are poisoning the children the most. And so we have a lot of other ideas for this in our own department to help bring this along in terms of, our own. We've been training. We trained 16 new lead risk assessors in our department. So we really want to provide a resource to the public in terms of, helping them identify lead hazards, funneling them into a program like a window and door incentive program, which we would be administering by a third party, and that's what you would give them contracting authority to do. In addition, because we plan to be more proactive in the neighborhoods, especially in the 1 to 3 family space, where we really aren't getting the compliance we're getting otherwise. We would like to also be purchasing some XRF guns so that we can go out and do some 20-year work and some assessments with our own unit in building and housing, and also providing an ability for CD to also augment those HUD funds in addition to what they already have from ARPA in case, they really are doing more remediations than anticipated. And these funds, as the director said, have been very hard for them to get out the door because of the HUD rules. And so we want to kind of elevate that and be able to supplement that so that they can do the larger projects that are vexing the neighborhoods, especially the larger homes in Glenville where $20,000 just doesn't go very far. So I think it's a testimony to Karen Dittmer's advocacy that we did get that earmark. One of the reasons we did get it is because we are one of the few cities in Ohio that has a lead-safe ordinance. So they did make an earmark for Cleveland Heights that recently passed one as well. And they have let us know that if other people can't spend it, they're happy to send more money our way. So I think this is a real victory for Cleveland. We're very happy, and I don't know if Karen has anything she wants to say.
I'm just really excited. I'm really excited about this. They came to us for ideas. They took our ideas. They made it into a grant opportunity and allocated the money for Cleveland. And remember, this is not only are we fixing homes that children have been poisoned in, we're going to be fixing homes that children may live in. We're going to make those lead-safe homes. With this program, proactively fixing doors and windows, these people are going to be able to get lead-safe certificates. Where before they, what we haven't had compliance in is because nobody wants to spend the money to do it or don't have the money. And this is such a great jump for them, gives them such an opportunity that maybe they will actually throw some money into these rental properties because we're giving them a big jump start with giving them windows and doors. So I really can't be happier about this. And we're just going to move it through and hopefully get more funding.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Ms. Detmer, how do we anticipate that, first of all, this is great news about the additional $5 million, right? That's fantastic. How do we anticipate that individual property owners would be able to access the funds, the process for doing so?
So our thought right now is they will put in an application with our whoever we subcontract to, which right now looks like CHN. So just like they're getting funds through the coalition for assistance grants, these are going to be coupled with the funds that we give them. So instead of getting $7,000 to $12,000, they're going to get additional funding on top of that from the City of Cleveland's funds to do windows and doors. So we're hoping that it just kind of goes with the coalition funding through CHN, which is our funding also. So.
Thank you. So to clarify, so if an individual applies for funding through the coalition, it's still the one-stop shop application, but these are additional funds that they can request?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And also, just, sorry, one more point is, when this is ready to go, I think it would be a great opportunity to kind of market it and just another chance to reinvigorate the messaging and marketing around the availability of these resources. So please count on council to help with sharing that information out to our communities.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Council Lady. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number, Councilwoman Gray.
Hi, thank you, Chair. I just want to say, I've been working with Karen since before COVID, when I joined the team of Kim Foreman with the cohort team, and I know her passion and her thrust to get this done, and to know finally that we're going to pass this through. So I totally support this. Also with Director O'Toole, and also with our community director Elisa. So thank you. I just want to say that I'm happy.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1391-2023 will be considered for passage this evening by the entire committee. Thank you. Director, we'll go to these next two pieces. I think they're relatively low-hanging fruit, so try to get through these until we get to the other one. But this is ordinance number 1233-2023 by Council Members Harrison and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend Section 9 of ordinance number 371-2022 passed May 16, 2022, relating to conducting the exterior paint program. Director.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So this is, this actually will go part and parcel with some of the things that I will talk about in another, with the reorganization. But what we're looking to do is kind of transition away from having specific programs and really looking at home repair and home rehab as an entire whole. And so this is a part of that transition, and so we want to be able to use those dollars that we already have been allocated to just give us some more flexibility, so that we're not just locked into, a home that needs paint. But a home that needs paint probably also needs something like a roof. It might also need something else, and we want to make sure that we're able to do the full the full home. And so really it's just transitioning the way that we look at this program.
Okay. Councilman Harrison.
12, what is it? 33. Thank you, Mr. President. This was not heard in committee yet. We allowed this to move forward through the Finance Committee today. Director has explained to me, just as she has explained today. My only question through the chair to the director is, will we still have funds available if someone comes along and they can paint the home themselves and they apply for the paint program? Can we still support those who do want to participate in the paint program if we make this change?
Through the chair, we are transitioning away from that. I will be honest, that program, as it currently exists, does not actually meet the needs of our residents. And so we would be looking to step away from that process of having paint. Now, I say that with a caveat that we want to not ask for any additional funds, but continue the paint program so long as we have dollars available. So yes, folks will still be able to use that until we don't have any dollars available. And then we will transition into this larger home repair rehab program.
Sure. So if we make this change today, will there be still money in the pot if people came along to participate in the paint program?
Through the chair, yes, there's a significant amount of dollars that are still available.
Got it. Okay. And lastly, through the chair to the director, I know that sometimes, because the numbers may not be skyrocket or through the roof, that this program, that paint program, really has helped a lot of people.
Yes.
I know that it may seem that it's not working for everyone, which nothing works for everyone. However, there has been individuals who have been successful in the program, who's able to, provide their own labor and get the house painted. And because we were able to provide the paint and the supplies, it really allowed that project to go through, right? It shored up that last piece that they needed to, take care of the exterior maintenance of their home. And so, as it sits today, I would not be in support of, just removing the program altogether, but finding ways how we ways we can work together to tweak the program to make it better, so that way more people can participate and we can really generate some additional outcomes for the program. Because I know people personally in my ward who really benefited from the program, you know, and it's really worked out and helped them. And that one house that had the pill and paint for like 17 years on their house, you know, has been able to be painted, and it has really uplifted the street as a whole. So besides that, Mr. Chair, other than that, I have no reservations with this piece for passage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilman Jones and Councilman Palencic.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification with the director, we're not talking about doing away with the paint program, are we?
Through the chair, so not specifically with this legislation. What this is saying is we are, but I do want to be very clear that through our reorganization, we are looking at all home repair programs differently than we have. We are looking at it as a whole home, not as just a project by project. What happens is if we go to a home, and this has happened, I can't even tell you how many times this has happened. We will have somebody apply, and your colleague can attest to this in Ward 4. We will go to a home and we will walk up to it and believe that we're going to do a paint program, and we get to the house and we cannot in good conscience just, you know, forgive my terminology, we can't just slap lipstick on this pig. It's a big issue, and we actually need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the residents. And so, and also wanted to make a point to Chairman Hairston that I would not view this as going away from the paint program. I think it is re-envisioning how we do this so that it can better meet the needs of our residents. And that is where I will leave that. If a resident does just need paint, then that looks like that's the project for them. But I really want us to reconsider how we're looking at these projects, and we're looking more at a holistic system, and the way that we are going to be reorganizing will help to do that. I know the paint program has been very popular, but what I can also say is that we have struggled implementing a purely paint program from here, and we need to readdress, because I don't want those dollars just hanging out if we can be more creative and get more work done.
Right. And Mr. Chairman, like my colleague Anthony Hairston and I, you know, want to, because see, where we are now with the paint program, briefly if I can, on this point, and where it was and where it has come. In days of past, Mr. Chairman, we had a very robust paint program in the city of Cleveland. The neighborhoods back in the early part of 2000 and moving forward was really a good program. But unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, I wasn't a council member at the time, but somehow I think someone somewhere messed up somewhere. And then the paint program went into in hibernation, and then it just disappeared. And the city for quite some time didn't have a paint program, and it wasn't until 2017, 2018 that then Anthony Braccatelli said, hey, this is a big need, we need to have this tool back, and then thus started the route of recreating the paint program. And like any program, Mr. Chairman, to the director, you know, you have to have the will of the administration that really wants to do it and really wants to make the program work. And so, Mr. Chairman, you know, we had a program where we only had like a little small window when it started back to get people involved. And most people, like most citizens, when it becomes springtime, then they say, oh, do we have a program? And then they want to get in the program. But unfortunately, because the way the administration operated, the previous administration operated programs, almost as if it was set up to fail to some degree. Because then you had the people would only have between December, I think it's either November or December, to apply for the paint program before and then they got approved in the previous year for the following year. And that was a mess. And that happened, Mr. Chairman, to the director for at least 2.5 to 3 years before this council started really pushing incentives and initiatives to have that tool put back in place. And so I would, you know, share, Mr. Chairman, to the director, if we have someone who has the capacity, and I know that that's been a challenge in the department, hiring people on who have the bandwidth and the capacity to really run a program or run a multi-million-dollar projects. It's been really difficult for us here, but that's what it's going to take, Mr. Chairman, is having someone who's committed to this, and it's one of the reasons why then they open it up to have it for all year. You can apply for it and get those funds. But I think that if we market this, Mr. Chairman, to the director and we're really focusing on that, we can really keep this paint program. And then having people who will local development corporations who will then, because we're at the space now where we're talking about hiring people to help senior citizens paint their homes. So this paint program for us in our neighborhood, we're really looking at how we can use it and how we can get the most out of it to help our citizens. So I would just, Mr. Chairman, ask for mercy on the program and really, really look at this, not to see this go away.
Thank you. Councilman Mike Polisic, Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the my honorable colleagues, to the director. So again, you're telling us at the table that the paint program, as we know it now, which isn't always working the way it was intended to work, will be not thrown out, but will be reinvented. Maybe that's a better word to use, reinvented. But when we look at the entire, what dollar amount are you going to associate with this? Is there a dollar amount associated with it?
Yes, so that specific dollar amount is in the legislation, and so what you see is it moves from one, and I don't have
Here it
the-
is. Hold on.
0.1, the 2.1.
To 2.1, yes.
Okay.
So it's actually additional dollars, but I do want to be very clear in signaling, though, that there are additional dollars, we are transitioning how we are running this program. Again, it's not stopping, it's learning from what we've learned as an administration over the past 2 years.
Okay.
We've done a pilot program, we've been in the neighborhoods, we've been talking to folks, and we want to make sure that whatever we're presenting is actually meeting the needs of our residents as best as possible. And the way that things are currently set up, it is not happening in that way. And so,
Okay.
yes, it is a transition, but there are additional dollars, and we are not asking for more dollars specifically for this program.
Okay, so I support your efforts, your trying to make programs work. We have the money set aside for the senior program, which it takes forever to get expedited. That's through the Department of Aging. I don't know if you have a part of that or a role. I mean, so we have funded all these initiatives over the years, but we're not having the impact that we need to have. Mm-hmm. And you can see it as you drive this city. The number of homes that are in just disrepair, the number of homes that have blue tarps on their roofs, and we didn't have a hurricane come through here. But as you just ride around and take your time, you say to myself, oh my goodness, the majority of our houses were built before the Second World War. In my own ward, I have a whole bunch that are 100 years of age and maybe older. Mm-hmm. And again, as you indicated, putting paint on them is not going to cut it. Not when the porch is falling off, or there are issues with the windows, and God knows chimneys need pointing, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really hoping and I applaud you in the administration, by taking a different approach. But again, the proof will be in the pudding. If we can really start to see something happening.
For sure.
Because that's where as I drive around, I say to myself, I'm out, I'm walking, I'm in people's backyards, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, look at this place. They need a whole lot more than paint. They need a whole lot more of everything to bring this house, just on the exterior, up to some type of standard. So again, I'm hoping that you are going to be successful. And just a part of this, and it goes into Community Reinvestment Act. On the east side, our folks can't get loans to repair their homes. They cannot get loans. And I hear it all the time. So here's somebody that's bankable, but they can't get loans to fix their homes. Right. So we've got to figure out how to get the financial institutions to be partners with us, because we are not going to have enough money to fix all these houses. people have to be able to secure loans. And if they can't, then we're not going to get a handle. We're going to see deterioration, people bailing out of these houses, et cetera, et cetera. And so again, I applaud you for thinking out of the box, Union administration, but time will tell how successful it's going to be. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, I think you'd mentioned that there's a significant amount of money still left in this program. Can you give us a ballpark on what a significant amount is?
So yes, thank you. Through the chair, that total dollar amount that you see that we're transitioning to, that includes all that is left over for those funds. So that over $2 million. And so I believe that council has allotted $1 million for this program annually for some time. We have not spent down those dollars from previous years. That's part of why I wanted to bring a change to this program so that we can expend these dollars.
And expend them through the paint, Mr. Chairman, to the director, or in other means if a house needs more?
These dollars that were originally set aside for paint will be for paint. The difference is we won't just have a paint program. We will look at a house like a project, and we will do paint and something else and something else. So if we have windows and doors and paint, that then is going to be exterior. But we have done ourselves a disservice by really saying we have a specific paint program, we have a specific lead program, we have a specific home repair program for seniors. The reality of it is many of our residents live in homes that need work, and we are changing the way that we are doing that work so that we can more easily braid those funds together, because a resident doesn't care if it's coming out of the ODOD lead, the ARPA lead, or the HUD lead. They just know that they need the work done, and so that is part of this comprehensive change that we are doing.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, is this work, does it get done out of your department, or does it get done through building and housing?
Through the chair, this work goes through community development.
Okay.
All home repair and rehab work.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, have you had a discussion with the director of building and housing regarding this? I mean, I know it's your program, but it affects building and housing, I would say, the most, right, via inspections and all that other stuff. So have you worked hand in hand with Director Martin in regards to this, or have you received her input going forward on how this new program should look?
Through the chair, not specifically on this program, although we do work very closely together on a whole number of programs, and Director Martin O'Toole has been at the table as I've presented to the administration what changes we were going to make. And again, I want to be clear that it's not so much of the paint program going away as much as it is being folded into this larger home repair bucket.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to just echo our director on the paint program. As she stated, Ward 4 had the pilot program of the paint program, and I was given at least 50 homes to have this done. But along the way, as we learned both together and also the homeowners of the homes that were selected to get the paint program, they did have a lot of extensive work that needed to be done. And that's where we had to understand that even the pilot program didn't work as effectively as it should have. But but on the other hand, we had maybe about 5-6 homes was painted because the homes was in great condition, and the other homes had repair. And just last night when I went over to a homeowner's home, the first one that you guys looked at, she asked me, she got her front and back porch repaired, but she said, Councilwoman Gray, I still haven't had my house painted. I said, because you need repair, but you're still on the list. However, you will be contacted next year. So it's just a little bit more time, a little bit more education. So I understand, what you're coming what you're saying, that, that this program would only extend more effort and more work to the house before the paint is done. So I'm looking to be part of your conversation, because I have a lot of homes still on the list for next year. So I will, whatever needs to be done, I'm here to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted simply to, this has been good discussion to help advance this along. So through the chair to the director, so is there already, so this would no longer be called the paint program. So is there an already, so just for purposes of our communication with residents, how would we kind of explain the sunsetting of the old program and what this new program would be?
Through the chair, when we fully complete the reorganization and we have this home repair program, the goal is actually to have a single application, what we're calling our universal application. That would be the way, but we are not there yet. So, the answer is hold tight. We're going to complete what we need to complete that transition for our reorganization and create the structure so that we can then really define what our program parameters are and how we're going to accomplish our goals. And then at that point, probably in the springtime, we'll be coming back and happy to share with you how we're able to accomplish that. But the answer is through a tool that is not yet available that we're working very hard to get.
Right, thank you. And then one more follow-up question is that for the time being, these are existing funds that have not been spent, already encumbered funds that have not been spent. And it sounds like we do not anticipate adding additional funds necessarily to this new program until such time that the existing funds are spent?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1233-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Move to the next one, which is ordinance number 1285-2023. An emergency by Councilmembers Starr, Harrison, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Community Development to accept a donation of 3 pieces of real estate from Community Housing Solutions for use by the Department of Community Development. Director.
Thank you, Council President.
Let me do this. Let me read the amendment. Oh, is there an amendment? No. Okay, please proceed. Apologize.
This is a very simple piece of legislation. Right now, we don't have a way to accept land bank parcels except through the legislative process. That is why we are here today. So we had some previous City of Cleveland residential land bank parcels. There are 3 of them that were deeded over to Community Housing Solutions for a project that did not take place. In further conversations with them, it became apparent that whatever their original intent for those parcels was something that wasn't actually going to go through. And rather than let those lots be left in an area where left vacant, we have been willing to accept those parcels so that we can get them back out into better, more appropriate use than being a vacant, than being 3 vacant lots.
All right. Councilman Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This ordinance was heard in DPS committee. It did pass out of the committee. It was my understanding that this ordinance was discussed with Councilman Starr, which is the reason why we passed out of the committee. We understood that this was simply a land donation, and it did have Councilman Starr's support. And I have no concerns. However, Councilman Starr, I believe, would like to weigh in on this piece as relates to his notification of these 3 different lots being donated back to the city in Ward 5. Thank you.
Councilman Starr.
Thank you, Chair and Council President. Yes, I'm not familiar with actually what is going on. I don't even know who is Cleveland Housing Solutions. So
That's actually Roger Carney. You know who Carney is? The guy who works with us for home repair. Have you ever worked with him? He's here every
Monday.
Haven't sat down and met anything.
You haven't met with him? Okay.
All I know is that Monday before we went to our conference, this was introduced, but I haven't talked to nobody from the department about what's going on or anything. I don't recall.
Do you want to weigh in? Because councilman needs to be involved if it's going to be happening in Ward 5.
It is about bringing them back into the land bank. So right now, they're not in the land bank. This is not about them going back out into productive use. It's just accepting the parcels back into the land bank. And so this isn't something that we're not talking about the disposition of these 3 lots. So we are actually doing a reversal of what we normally do.
So you're
You're
just taking them
accepting
back
the lots in so that we can do something productive with these lots.
Yeah, so just for clarification, I'm open for us to do some different things with lots, but I mean, like when my name on something, I don't support things if I don't know about it, meaning no one from the department talked to me about anything going on that. Now, I know the couple weeks out of October, November, I was out sick, but I don't got no email. I didn't have nothing. All I know is on the 13th, this was introduced, and now it went through a committee, and then I'm here today like, well, what is this actually going on? Because, like I said, I don't know. Are we going to be the ones in charge of keeping these lots clean now? Can Public Works handle keeping those lots clean? Because this is right here on East 30th, right around the corner from my house, as well as different residents over there. So I don't know if the city is going to maintain it or not, because those are some of the lots that I often get calls about. I just don't know, Council President. I'm not against us accepting it, but I'm just confused, like, why wasn't I notified more to get a debrief of what is actually going on this? But hey, this is the city of Cleveland. You know, if I don't act like George Forbes, don't nobody listen to me. But it's just, I don't understand what we're doing, but I don't know.
Well, Councilman, it's your call, but if I'm understanding this correctly, all we're doing is taking these lots back into the inventory for the city, which means basically you got 3 more lots that you can work with the director to, because they got to come to you for dispensation. But I understand the councilman's point. Somebody should have at least just gave him a courtesy call and say, hey, this is what's up. And but it's your call what you want to do.
Yeah, and then, you know, I mean, I don't be getting no development in my neighborhood, so getting more lots is more work for me. I don't get no development. So that's why I'm really reserved on it. On what's, like, is this urgent? I see it says emergency. Is this urgency? Like, what's the urgency of getting more lots? Or, because the way I look at it, I see they got a letter of support from the mayor. You know what I mean? That's the thing I look at it. If we need legislative support, I should have a letter of support on this. I should have been included as well. I mean, what's the sense of getting elected if you don't get to do anything?
So you want to put it on the shelf, Councilman?
Yes.
All right, we're going to hold it until Councilman gets some more background on what he's trying to do with it, okay? So please hold ordinance number 1285 until Councilman Starr gets some more background on the program that they're doing, okay? Thank you. And here's another one that's supposed to be hold. Okay? All right, we're going to go into a couple of more pieces, and I know I'm going to pivot a little bit of this to Councilman Hairston, but this is ordinance number 1254-2023 as amended by Council members Hairston and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend the fourth whereas clause in section 1 of ordinance number 671-2023 passed June 5th, 2023, relating to authorizing the Director of Community Development to provide financial assistance to projects providing housing in the city of Cleveland. And the amendment was actually to the legislative file. And the amendment says there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In section 1, at amended section 1, line 4, strike 671-2023B and insert 671-2023-C. And this is dated 12/1/23, signed by Stephanie Melnick, Chief Assistant Director of Law. Director.
Thank you, Council President. I have with me Tony Banco, who's the manager of the Housing Development Office in Community Development. This is so that we can finish out the ARPA gap financing program for residential homes. And so when we met last week at committee, there were some changes that happened at the table that were proffered by council. So I don't know if Chairman, if it makes sense to talk about what those changes were, and we're happy to take any questions about this process and where we've ended up. Just
Right. Mr. Chair?
Yes, if you
Okay,
could.
we're good. Yes. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, last week during a DPS meeting, we had a very robust discussion around the funding for several projects that this body passed a number of months ago. And as it was indicated at our last approval before this past week, that anything in yellow, they must come back to us to seek approval to continue to work down the line. Council staff, Joe Titron, has been a part of this process from the very beginning. Councilman Harsh has worked alongside, and Councilwoman Spencer came into the fray along the way. So at the committee DP&S meeting last week, there was a couple changes made. The Woodhill Center North, as you see, was striked and it was added to the home ARPA box, which we've been told that it can be fully funded out of home ARPA. The Near West Community Land Trust was striked and put in the home ARPA category. And the two additional projects that were initially not a part of the home ARPA recommendation because of situations that were explained to us by the department last week, they were added to the waiting list after we worked through projects that were that they submitted an application. The application was accepted and they were approved, whether they were approved to go now, whether they were on the list for funds should there be any additional funds. We added them to the waiting list. And that's how we got to the amendment, as you see, in file number 671-2023C. But we do have an amendment to our amendment from last week, just to make one change, well, two changes rather, from our amendment from last week to clear up one issue.
Did you want to proffer that amendment now, and is the administration aware of that already?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want to proffer that amendment now?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make amendment on file number 671-2023C in the ARPA affordable category, that we unstrike Near West Community Land Trust. And in home ARPA recommendations, we strike Near West Community Land Trust. And we also turn the Hitchcock Supportive Housing category or line item to green. And I believe that is all. So we need a second.
All right, is there any second on the councilman's motion? Second. Councilman Harsh, so it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilman Harsh, did you have any discussion on that, or did you not? Councilman Casey, any discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, just what is the Near West that we're striking?
It's a housing project that I think spanned 3 different wards, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right, Councilman?
Mr. Chairman, to the director, can you explain what the Near West
Yes.
that we're striking?
Yes, thank you. So this is actually we were originally asking for this to be passed. It was amended and then it was stricken through the First Amendment, and then through this latest amendment, it is now back into being passed. This project will affect wards 3, 15, and 14. It's a scattered house a scattered housing project, and it also is through the CDCs, I believe Tremont and Ohio City. That is who the Near West Community Land Trust is.
And through the chair to the council person, it's a land trust model. So the project proffers 12 units of single-family housing, of which I believe half of them will be permanently affordable up to a 99-year period to families making 80% or less of the area median income.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councilman, this is any other discussion on the amendment before we get back to the legislation? All right, seeing no other discussion on the amendment, all in favor of this amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we're back to discussing the general legislation, and I have Councilman Chris Harsh on the. Oh, Councilman Hairston, you still have the floor. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quick, I did send an email over requesting the denial letters for the Variety Theater Complex and the Alexia, what is it called? Variety Properties LLC, the Alexia, Variety Properties LLC / Flatmos Holdings, and the Lorexia Incorporated, which is the Alexia Manor project. Haven't received that information back, so if the department can get that back to me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
And I will double down on what the councilman is saying. Variety theater is a super priority for this council. So we will be working overtime with Councilman Kelly to make sure we find that money because that is a critical project that we brought a long way and we can't let it die on the vine now, okay? Okay.
Tony does have something to share about that request.
Sure.
Okay.
Through the chair to the councilman. So the reason for our denial for these both projects are in a similar vein. For the Variety Theater project, they did not really submit a full scope of work, architectural drawings. They were missing a number of financial commitment documents. They were missing phase 1 environmental assessment, market study. There was a number of documents that were missing that just made it difficult for us to be able to support the project, knowing that with the first interest of how we're vetting these projects through the deep dive is trying to find projects that are ready to go, correct? And so both these projects had that issue. With Alexia, the scope of work that they submitted was missing a lot of information. Based on what we could see, it was more of a, we tried to, at a minimum, the lowest level that we will fund is what we call a substantial rehab, which means we want to create new housing that currently doesn't exist. That's the focus. That oftentimes means it would be major systems replacements in a building. So we're talking roof, foundation repair, structural repairs, complete renovation of all existing units in it. The scope of work was more like kitchen cabinets and carpet and some minor exterior repairs. And then on top of that, they were also asking us to fund over 60% of the total cost of the project, which our goal is to be in at 20% or less. So for that reason, we rejected that.
So through the chair, so thank you for that information on those projects. But we did have a letter, one letter has gone out and one letter has not. Is that correct? That is why we have not.
That's correct.
Yeah.
We've not released the letter for Lorexis or Alexia Manor yet, pending the passage of this legislation.
So the letters have not gone, the letter hasn't gone out because we're still in, we're not fully baked until legislation passes here.
Well, thank you for that. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say the reason you didn't respond to the message asking for this is because we haven't gone through this process, because if one letter has gone out to someone else, us not passing this would not be the reason why you didn't send us a copy of what the denial letter would be. Because you said one went out to one group, but that one didn't, right?
Through the chair to the councilman. So the situation's a little different. We originally issued a denial letter for Alexia because we had sent them a list of questions that we had about their application. We gave everyone in this initial green list a chance to respond to any questions we might have, because there's confusion around the neighborly process. And we issued that because they didn't respond to our request for comments. And it turns out there was a mistake in their application, which meant the email we sent off went to somewhere else.
That's fine. Again, I just, it's not for us to get into, you know, the debate here today about, you know, what was in the letter you sent out. That's why I asked for that early on, that information, so that way we can have time to discuss that, or we can develop any questions that we may have if we had that ahead of time, right? So we can I look forward to having a continued discussion on you know, both of those projects. The Variety Theater in particular, because that project, as we know, Warner Swayze and others have been around for quite some time and really trying to move them along. And so I would be interested to know whether we allow Variety Theater an opportunity to answer the questions, return the documents that were returned. But again, that's not for us to hash out today, but it was one of the things that I've asked for to be sent over to myself and Mr. Titron on why those projects were denied, and to send us a copy of the denial letter that was sent to each of those projects. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Chris Harsh.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the discussion that we had in DPS on Ordinance 1254 is what really got me thinking about the transfer ordinance. And I know I sent an email out to everybody in this body asking about putting more money into this affordable housing pot. One of the problems we have here is that we're staring at like another 1,000 potential units of affordable housing that we don't have enough money to help support those projects. And these are already in the queue. These projects are lined up. Developers are working on this, and aside from these, there's still a whole nother list of projects that didn't even make this list. I think we could easily spend another $10 million on affordable housing right now, quickly. And given the inflation in the construction market, I would encourage this body to act quickly, because what we can build now is going to be a lot cheaper than what we can build in 5 years. It's not going down. I mean, prices are not going to go down anytime soon. So while we've got access to a bit of an excess from last year's budget, I would really encourage everybody to consider ways that we can draft legislation to make it happen, or amend legislation to make it happen, to put 10 million more from that transfer into this pot right here, because these yellow lines you're looking at could be green, and that would be another 1,000 units of affordable housing available in Cleveland. And I say that not because it benefits Ward 13. None of these are in my ward, but these are in my city, and we need to have these affordable units in the city of Cleveland. So I would encourage everybody to take this seriously and work with me to figure out how to do this. We have access to the funds. We should put them in while the pipeline is while the pump is primed. And I would encourage people to work with me on that.
Thank you, Councilman, and I will tell you that that's something that, as I talked to you about over the weekend, that I think all of us have a desire to do. I just need us to be cohesive and have a very in-depth conversation, because last week, as you've seen my frustrations, I was getting 27 different conversations. And it's impossible to have 17 different line item discussions about how we need to move. So I know I always punt to him because I'm a delegator and he does a good job of herding this. I think there's a conversation that the chair can really lead, and I'm willing to be a part of that. But I just want to have something that we all agree on, and not us have 17 different approaches on how we want to do it, as I told you this week. But I am open to your conversation on that. Councilwoman Spencer, were you done, Councilman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Actually, that was on Councilman Harsh's point. I was going to ask for time. So Councilman through our chair, Councilman Harsh, that was the exact line of thinking I had. I wanted to see, just so we can have a productive discussion, would it be possible through our chair to ask the administration to provide for those that are still on the waiting list, what is the total amount of the ask or the gap? I don't know if that number is readily available.
Joe, do you have that? Can we get that follow-up from the administration, a specific number of the projects that have not been funded? What is the total amount? so that we at least know what that amount is
The total remaining amount of the request.
of the request, yes.
So if I may make just clarifying so that we're sending over the correct information. So there are essentially 3 buckets. There were the green projects that we have the ability to contract with, the yellow projects that we are coming back to you with today. There were also projects that were denied. So we do have the number of each of those. I just need to know what it is that you're looking for, but some were denied for legitimate reasons. So I just want to put that out there. But what it does show is that there's a tremendous ask. And what you see here in yellow these are the projects that we thought were most viable to get picked up.
Thank you for asking, and to clarify, and this is still on Councilman Harsh's point, I would be asking for, of those that are yellow in the wait list, what is that gap? What is that overall bite of the apple? How much of how big of a number is that? What is that number for the yellow waitlisted projects?
Yes. We can certainly, through the chair, we can certainly pull those numbers. That will be a quick exercise to do. I also, though, want to note that not all of the yellow projects have been fully vetted through our process. So we will get you what folks have asked for, not what we have assessed we would be willing to participate in.
Correct. Thank you very much.
Councilman Hairston?
Yes, and I'll be brief. I know we need to move on. I know we have a number of other agenda items. What I would say is that it's important to note that because a project was denied, a part of this process does not make it a bad project. As Mr. Bangle indicated, it's really about, well, you didn't have this at the time. You need to get us this. Can you tell us more information about this? So it's not that we have projects that are just like completely bad. Oh, no, we absolutely know we should not support this. But more so around, as we heard, documentation, clearly articulating, what it is that you are trying to do and accomplish with the project and where you're trying to complete this project. And also, it just, sometimes it comes down to what we all, both sides of the table may have a thought on a project and the developers have another thought, right? There's always 3 sides of a story, as they say. Mm-hmm. Your side, my side, and the truth, right? And so, again, you don't get to any of that unless you open up the lines of communication, communicate with each other, try to figure out or sift through maybe all this other information that's given, except the information that is really needed to accomplish, what's trying to be accomplished, and that is to obtain funding to support the project. So I think that is important for us to keep in mind, that they're not denied based on being bad, but because of information that we have heard today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I don't see any more questions. I do want to say I want to commend Councilman Hairston. This is one of those pieces of legislation that if you only knew the conversations that took place the last week and how everybody really worked. And I want to thank the director as well as Mr. Bango, because I know there was a lot of compromise and a lot of give and take on this one. So thanks, everybody. We came to this, didn't come to this lightly. And Councilwoman and Councilman Harsh, I share your commitment to trying to find a way to put more money into affordable housing. We just need to figure out what makes sense. And then we do need to have a follow-up with Councilman Kelly, because I was unaware that Variety didn't provide that paperwork, but we do need Variety we put a lot of skin in the game with that, and we just need to see that through.
Through the chair, or to the chair, we're absolutely willing to talk through each and every one of these projects and share our analysis and exactly what's needed. And again, look forward to being able to do more of this. It is even when we say no, it's not now. But we are continuing to have these technical assistance conversations. I think one of the biggest differences that I've heard with this administration versus previous administrations is our willingness to really have that deep dive and talk with those developers who might be emerging developers. And so we've been doing that technical assistance, and I want to publicly thank Tony Bango for taking the time to actually sit with folks, whether they're council members or developers, to make sure that everybody understands exactly what we need so that we can get more units online.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1254-2023 passes as amended. Let's go to the next one. Thank you, Mr. Bango. The next one is ordinance number 1184-2023, as amended by Council Members Jones, Bishop, Gray, Hairston, Jones, Bishop, Gray, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to amend title and sections 1, 2, 4, and 7 of ordinance number 490-2023 passed May 31, 2023 relating to professional services to establish, implement, and manage a revolving loan fund for a home repair and rehabilitation program for Cleveland Southeast Side neighborhoods, and to supplement the ordinance by adding a new whereas clause in section 1A, 1B, and 1C. And the amendment states, there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In 1, at amended section 7, line 4, strike or director and insert or directors, and strike executive and insert execute. This was done 11/21/23 by Stephen Martinek, Assistant Director of Law. Director.
Thank you. So through the chair, this is a part of legislation that was already approved by this body for home repair on the southeast side of Cleveland. And so this is a corrective ordinance from law, and part of what needed to be corrected is, there's a lot of legislation today. Part of what needed to be, that we need to be able to contract with our partners. And so we have presented on this, and I believe it includes that, and then language on the Housing Advisory Board, which is a board that is required in order to get these dollars out. When we originally conceived of this program, it was in a different funding bucket of ARPA than it is now, and so we are back here at the table mostly on a procedural manner.
Thank you. Councilman Hairston, this went through Development, Planning, and Sustainability.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chairman, this was heard by DPNS. It was held at, not last week, the week before, Finance Committee, I believe.
Yeah.
In fact, the committee held the wrong piece. This one was not the one that should have been held. If you're going to hold them, hold both of them. But however, because the piece that was passed last week is where the dollar amounts went to CMP and CHN and the Concerned Citizens Group and the Southeast Side. And the concerns that were raised there were the disbursement and the way disbursements are going to be made, whether it's going to be reimbursement, whether it's going to be upfront, and who's going to do the work. Because some of the organizations on the list, there were concerns around, actually who's going to do the work, and some having actual experience, and giving them money up front as an all-out disbursement was a concern for committee members. So unfortunately, I was out because I was sick, and so that rolled on through without an issue. However, going back to this piece, 1184, have no issues. This is simply, as we heard, you're adding some words, deleting some words. There's no real substantive change to 1184. So I'll ask for the committee support.
Thank you, Councilman. Any additional questions on 1184-2023? Hearing none, 1184-2023 is approved. Please sign. Ordinance number 1135-2023 is amended by Councilmembers Hairston and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to discontinue the divisions of Neighborhood Services, Neighborhood Development, Administrative Services by repealing sections 13707, 13708, 13709, 13710, 13711, 13712 of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, and by amending various ordinances and to establish the division of community programming, programming operations, enterprise operations, residential improvement, housing development, and property utilization with the Department of Community Development by enacting new sections 13705 through 13712 and 137121, 137122, 137123, and 137124 relating to the duties of the new commissioners. Director.
Okay, thank you. As the chairman mentioned, we are looking to pass this legislation, and what this will do is help give a clearer pathway for our reorganization. I in DPNS did a full presentation of this. And exactly what our plans were, but I do need to reiterate that the actual legislation that we're asking to get passed today is just taking away the divisions as they currently sit so that it'll leave room to reemerge a new system, of which I talked about what that was going to be. A couple of high levels. This plan of reorganization for the department is budget neutral. Nobody loses a job or any pay. And there has been and will be some shifting, but we will do so within the footprint of our budget and within the footprint of where we currently sit. It is just about making more efficient processes and making sure that people are operating at their highest level. This is notably sunsetting the divisions that were that are previously in legislation that were run by commissioners. The Department of Community Development has a 3-division system right now. We believe it best serves us to have 6 what we are now calling bureaus, and that are more tightly defined. As our divisions currently sit right now, they are larger than some and honestly many of the city departments. And so this will give us better span of control and be better able to provide the needs of our residents through this legislation.
Question.
Thank you. Councilman Hairston, this went through Development Planning Sustainability.
Mr. Chairman, we heard this in DPS last week, a very robust discussion around what the department is asking. Initially, as the director said, that they were looking to add 3 additional divisions and 3 additional commissioners. But after a very long discussion in the department, outside the department, meaning here at the table, it's thought that we do not add additional 3 divisions, nor do we add 3 additional commissioners, that the director was looking, just her ability to have these 3 divisions sunset so she can be able to reorganize the department as she presented to us in the file. Mr. Teichman, can you make sure we have attached the file to that? Or Jessica? The file attachment that was presented at the last meeting, that's attached to this ordinance, that clearly outlines the path that the director is looking to go into as relates to rearranging the department. I have no readiness. I understand what she's trying to do. My only question is, I know a question has been asked around, I'm sure it's going to come up, the bureau managers versus the commissioners, is that just a working title? Will they still be commissioners? But, or you can't establish commissioner on your own. You would need council authority to do that, correct? Through the chair?
Through the chair, yes. So we would not have commissioners. If we did need to have commissioners, that would be a legislative action. I do want to note that there's still the same pay band and still the same amount of protections as far as civil service is concerned for these bureau managers versus the commissioner system. So we will not call these folks commissioners, and they will not be residing over divisions. They will be bureau managers residing over a bureau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see we have a couple questions at the end of the table, so I'll pause for now and come back.
Thank you, Chair, and I failed to read the amendments, so I'll do that right now. There is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. Number 1, in the title, line 2, strike an emergency ordinance 2 and insert 2 and beginning with line 8, strike that line and the remainder of the title and insert by various ordinances. The second amendment is strike section 4 in its entirety and renumber section 5 and 6 to new section 4 and section 5. Councilman Planting.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, to the director. How many commissioners do you have now?
Through the chair, currently we have 2 commissioners.
And that would be Commissioner of Rehabilitation.
Administrative Services is Joy Anderson.
Yes.
And then we have Neighborhood Development, which is James Green.
Who took Ms. Jackson's place?
Nobody at this point. We're waiting to do a full reorganization. But really, There won't be a new that with this reorganization.
Okay, but that's
There
what I'm
won't
trying-
be neighborhood
But
services.
so you're telling us we have 2 commissioners now, but you mentioned 3.
There's a 3-commissioner system
Right.
that is currently in place. Right now, 2 of those positions are filled.
Yes.
One it was recently vacated due to a retirement.
Okay. So I think it's always good for any, especially a new administration coming in, existing administration, to look at how a department can be improved, can be streamlined, protocols can be better addressed. But here is my concern that I'll express to you. Managers are political appointments. Commissioners are not. Commissioners have to take a civil service test. And so I'm concerned by eliminating commissioners, and this is not the first department nor time that I have seen this over the years. And I have found that commissioners are usually the most responsive to Cleveland council members, city council members, because they are civil service. They are protected from political pressure and appointments. And so you're going to have to sell me as why I would agree to reduce the number of commissioners in community development. I could understand reorganization. I could understand changing job areas of responsibility. But I'm going to have to really be sold on voting for something that reduces the number of commissioners, because I've seen what has happened over the years. This move to bureau managers, which then just come nothing more than political appointments, political appointees, and might not be the best person to serve in that role, might not be the best person that's going to be accountable to Cleveland City Council members based on our concerns about services and programs. So explain to me what this move is about to reduce the number of commissioners.
Thank you for that perspective.
Okay.
Through the chair, we actually originally, if you go back and look at the First Amendment or the original unamended legislation, we did ask for 6, so sunsetting the 3-division system to then reemerge with a 6-division system, and really after conversation with council, we thought it best to go away with that. My reality is that so long as I'm able to hire and get the most qualified people in to do the role, I really don't care what we call them. What I need is the structural change. And so I was really agnostic. I originally, within the current system that we have a commissioner system. And so as to not rock the boat, I added 3 additional commissioners to make us have 6 commissioners. After conversation, that was talked about not wanting to have that. That is fine, because it is the structure that matters here.
So then, show in your presentation here, what would your department look like if this endeavor goes through, this proposal goes through?
We can. We do. It's up there. I thought for expediency's sake not to go through the full presentation.
Just for full thing, I told her that since they already did this in community development, we didn't need to redo it all over again.
So go ahead.
Yep. So what I will give you is here. So here's the new structure. It'll be the Director of Community Development. Currently, there are now 2 assistant directors. Each of those assistant directors split the department, if you will.
Okay.
And will take on 3 of those bureau managers underneath each of them. Okay. And so what you see here are under assistant director, and this one would be Tony Scott, which is more on the programmatic side. And so under Tony Scott, we will have the Program Operations Bureau, Community Programming Bureau, and Residential Improvement Bureau. Councilman Polensek, you asked about Louise Jackson's role in neighborhood development. The closest thing to that is this new home repair that I've been talking about.
Yes.
And so that is going to take place with this Residential Improvement Bureau. So this is, these are not individuals. As you all know, the department is quite large, so I've not listed on here individuals, plus we're still in a transitionary phase. But what you see on here are program areas, and so each of those program areas is on here.
On the point,
I will,
on the point of bureau,
hold on,
is that
Councilman,
how the
Councilman,
commissioner?
hold on, please, everything through the chair. If you have a point, Councilman Polensek has the floor. Councilman Polensek,
Yes,
would you
if
allow
it's,
Councilman Jones a
if
brief
it's a
point?
point, yes, sir.
Chairman, on the point, I know that Tony Scott is a commissioner, correct? Mr. Chairman, to the director, or he's not?
through the chair, he is Assistant Director of Community Development.
I see, so he's not a commissioner?
He is not a commissioner,
Okay,
no.
so in this here that we're talking about, you're not reducing any commissioners, you're keeping the same amount of commissioners, just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, to the director, and then where will they show up on your new plan?
So through the chair, there will be no commissioners. So the number of that same level is going to go from currently 3 positions to 6 positions, but they will not be commissioners. They will be in charge of a bureau. And so that is going to happen right there in that blue level, right under the assistant directors. So there are 6 main programmatic areas. This is under one of the assistant directors. This is under the other assistant director. And that is McKeel Wackers. So housing development will be a bureau, enterprise operations, which is most closely aligned with our administrative division right now. And then we have neighborhood revitalization. This is where you will see land bank and that new office that we've created, asset redevelopment, that is led by Trudy Andreski.
Okay. And so, Mr. Chairman, then to the director, you will have a manager in charge of those 6 areas, correct?
I will have, through the chair, 6
That's what you're
bureau
proposing.
managers.
6 bureau managers.
Yes, so this is the highest level of manager that we are not calling a commissioner, but has the same civil service protections as well as,
How can they have the same civil service protection if they're not a commissioner? You just can't change a name. There's got to be legislative action.
through the chair, this legislative action, so we, okay.
Okay.
Man,
I'm listening.
How do I? So what it is that right now that protects those commissioners is that it's written into legislation.
Yes.
That is what we are, that is the difference, is that it will not be written into legislation. So there is this idea that a commissioner is not able to be, there's a lot of, and this is really the first time I'm hearing positive things about the commissioner role. I've typically heard pretty negative things about the commissioner role. And it comes with a lot of baggage. So again, I am agnostic to whether we have 6 divisions or 6 bureaus. What I'm concerned about is that my folks are protected by civil service, which both of these roles are, and they are also have the same ability for pay, so they are at a similar pay band, a similar pay scale. Those are the things that matter to me, along with this structure.
Okay.
So to me, it is the legislation that we need is commissioner or not, and I'm mostly
So-
agnostic, but I would love
Okay.
to hear from others if.
So again, because I've been here long enough, so I know how the process works. So you would come in at some point with enabling legislation to create the managerial positions, because if you have commissioners now, you cannot just abandon that.
Through the chair, that is what this legislation is. That is the only thing that this
So this is what
legislation is
this
doing.
legislation does.
That is the only thing that this legislation is doing.
So your managers will be at-will positions.
They will be civil service protected positions.
But so what you're telling me, you're just changing the title?
The biggest change is that they will not be viewed as protected under legislation. They will still be civil service protected, yes.
They'll have to take a civil service test.
They will have to go through whatever process right now that civil service requires to be bureau. And I don't know if there's any, we've talked through this with law
This went through
as well as HR.
This, Mr. Chairman, this went through the committee process,
Yes,
and this was thoroughly discussed in committee.
thoroughly.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to understand this. I'm for enhancing, I'm for improving. But I want to make sure at the end of the day, we're not just creating a bunch of political positions and not getting the end result that we want.
Through the chair, Councilman Belenzak, I agree with you 150%. And that is where this is my response to all of the conversations, all of my time at the table, and all of my time out there with you all in your wards. This is my response to that. This is how I believe we move forward in community development.
Okay, well, then Mr. Chairman, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm just going to say to my colleagues on that committee, do you feel that this is the route to go?
So, Councilman Harrison, this was heard in DPS. Do you feel like this structure is efficient and can help to be efficient?
Well, you know, the overall layout, I think, will be efficient, whether it's 6 commissioners or whether it's 6 bureau managers. My biggest concern, as I have heard, you know, now, is I ask the same question. Well, what makes the bureau manager different than the commissioner, right? And it has always been told to me, and by the director again today, that it is because of the ordinance that we had gives the protection to the commissioner because it's in ordinance, right? So that position has to exist. And this would, this change, the bureau managers, it wouldn't be the same, but as I'm hearing now, I feel like if you're going bureau manager, then I guess commissioners, it could be either or, because if they both have the same level of protection. But that was not my understanding, that they were equal, they were on equal footing in terms of civil service protection. But now it seems like that is the case.
It's the legislation.
Chief Abunama, hold on, let's give Chief Abunama a chance
Can
to
you put
at
me
least
down?
articulate his plan.
Through the chair to the council, I think, just want to clarify, all employees in the administration, except for chiefs, directors, and assistant directors, are civil service protected. Full stop. They take various kinds of tests. Civil service determines the way that tests are administered. Tests can be done through resumes, done through interviews, et cetera. Also written tests. The difference here is commissioners usually in the charter or the codified ordinances are vested with particular authority to sign things, to bind the city. And I think the difference with what the director is working on is to ensure that that authority is vested in the assistant directors and the director, not the commissioners, because there wouldn't be any commissioners in this structure.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to know that the director's watching us on TV. That's reassuring. Makes me feel good.
Must see.
Okay, I'm glad to know that. So the 2 commissioners that you do have at present, they're not losing, their title is going to change, but they're not losing their civil service status.
They will still be civil service protected through the chair, and they will also not lose any pay or the ability to advance in pay because the pay band is similar. The only difference is whether or not it is written in legislation, which gives all of these perceived, because really legislation can be undone, which is what we're doing here today.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to say this. As we pass legislation, we can always repeal legislation.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I got to tell you, because community development, I feel, and I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, because I think you've come in and you have come across some things that needed to be changed. Ineffectiveness, our antiquated, some internal and antiquated systems and processes. So I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, because I have no problem with people that are working for the mayor being appointed, political appointees. That's the charter. That's the way it is. But I want to make sure the departments and divisions are operated in a manner with the focus is on service delivery.
That's right.
Not protecting somebody's political friends or
That's right.
appointing their political friends. I want to make sure that that's what it's about, is service delivery. So I'm willing, based on my colleagues' comments and thoughts, I'm willing to give this a chance, and we'll see. I guess we'll know in a year, or less than a year, Mr. Chairman, if it's working right, because if not, then it's repeal time. It's repeal time. So thank you, Mr.
And
Chairman.
before I go to Councilman Slife, who's next on the agenda, I will tell you, and Director, if you can make sure your mic is on, I will tell you that part of the challenge with, and I can't speak for the director, but because of my conversations with them, is like she said earlier, when you go to a project, you can't just say, I'm going to paint a house. That's almost like trying to stitch up a bullet hole. You got to go in with a holistic approach. So HUD has been advising them on how they should structurally approach this, because quite frankly, I don't want to send up red alarm bells, but HUD has been very eagerly, aggressively pushing us to restructure how we operate community development. So that's one of the things that if I know the director jumped right into it, but one of the things that is precipitating this, her change in operations and structure, is because HUD is demanding certain things. And when you go into a house, there's like 8 domains, everything from black mold to lead to chipping paint to all kinds of other environmental things. They can't go in and say, we're going to paint the house and then got a mold mildew problem. So you need somebody who's kind of the honcho over all of those to make sure that all these programs are aligned together.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm like you with you. I support that, and she knows how I feel. I don't think community development has operated as efficiently and as effectively as it could have over the years. And I'll be the first to tell you, my time here, I'm disappointed. It takes too long to get stuff done here. So again, I'm on board. I just want to make sure that this doesn't become another dumping ground for political appointees. That's all where I'm at. Other than that, I'm fine.
Totally agree,
Thank you.
Councilman. Councilman Charles Slife.
All right, thank you. I'm going to keep it going, but with a slightly different angle. Thank you, Chief Abunama, for coming. What I want to make sure I understand is, we talk about during budget hearings the difference between civil service titles and working titles. So just to separate from community development, for example, the Division of Code Enforcement is a division, and Building and Housing has a commissioner, and then there are 2 bureaus underneath that individual. And within the civil service, so when we look at the budget, I wrote it down. Commissioner's pay scale is from 42 up to 162, and a bureau manager's is from 31 to 96. And that's the Division of Code Enforcement. That was the first one that popped up. I assume there's some continuity across different departments. So I agree. I don't really care about the names, and I agree the structure is the important thing, and I think sometimes we get caught up in like vice president versus senior vice president, like get the work done. But I'm trying to understand from a budgetary aspect, will these individuals leading the bureaus be appearing in the budget as bureau managers, or will they be appearing as commissioners simply because the commissioner role does have a higher pay band? So it's not that this is all of the money in the department, but there is a financial difference between the 2 civil service titles.
Do you want to take that, or do you want me? Little, not at a point that it matters.
Through the chair, I think I would need some more time to work with the director on this, but my guess is that if they show up as bureau managers, given the pay band that you described and the goal of the department to have these managers compensated at similar levels to what the commissioners are, that the pay band for the bureau manager position would need to change.
Okay. Go ahead.
Through the chair. So the range is quite large for many of our positions, right? I think administrative manager starts at 30 and goes up to like 140 140 or something thereof. Both categories have the range that I would need to be able to hire, that I would be able to, that I would need to be able to give folks raises on. Both of them do what I would need them to do. So I would not need it to change because it's already where I would need it to be. That goes higher than the assistant directors and some directors.
Sure. It's I just harken back to when I worked in the Jackson administration and I had Brian Casey's favorite title, special assistant to the mayor. And that didn't say anything about what I actually did. It was a civil service title. So I just want to make, and the CD budget is a bit trickier only because when we come to general fund, we really only see a small portion of the budget, so it's not a department where you see the totality of it all at once, and that's why I'm trying to wrap my head around what the difference is. I mean, structurally, I have no issues with the structure. I'm just trying to understand, are we in reality creating 6 new positions that in theory could get paid up to $162,000, which is not necessarily how that's being characterized here, but that could be a difference between like legal structure and outward structure. That's where my mind was over the weekend. So I think we have a little more clarity, but I do think it's something that we're going to just have to put a pin in for block grant hearings. So thank you.
We'll be watching that very closely. Thank you. He stepped out, so we'll go, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1135-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Yeah. Okay, because you were gone. Thank you. Here you go. That's signed. Let me sign it. All right, I got 2 more pieces. Yep, thank you. 2 more pieces, and then, thank you, Director. 2 more pieces, and then we have 2 more very critical small pieces. The Director of Human Resources, we'll hear his first. This is pretty much legislation to be passed under suspension to have the pay bands for AFSCME 100 to change their classifications in the public health. Director Cole, do you want to go over this piece of legislation?
Yeah, thank you, Council President and committee.
I'm sorry, let me just read it so I can go through. Ordinance number 1390-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend sections 8, 16, and 41 of ordinance 194-2021 passed March 29th, 2021 as amended relating to salaries for various classifications.
Yes, thank you. Just to go in order here, Section 8 first. This is to create 3 classifications and then add them to the pay band. Following the ratification of the collective bargaining agreement with Local 100, there was some ongoing discussions concerning the 3 classifications, which are environmental specialist 4, environmental specialist 5, and then the Senior Information Control Analyst. These classifications are still being discussed with the union. However, based on career progression and some things that we need to do within the department, we are still moving on the classifications and then adding them to the pay band. If at some point in the future they become part of the AFSCME contract, that'll be under a separate agreement with the union. So that's what the first one in Section 8 is.
Has everybody been able to pull up this piece of legislation?
Is it up on this board?
It's on the board. It's 1390-2023.
It's under the suspension.
All right, please proceed, Mr. Cole. All right, I don't, anybody have any questions for Mr. Cole? All right, these are pretty routine just things, but go ahead, Councilman Jones. 11, that's 1390.
I'm looking at it now. No questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, seeing no questions, ordinance number 1390-2023 stands approved. Thank you, Councilman. Last piece of legislation, and Councilwoman Spencer, I'm going to defer to her. I would like to be added to this if I could. This is ordinance number 1372-2023 by Councilmember Spencer. I think you're done, Mr. Cole.
Oh. I still have one. I have one for The last two.
What's that number? I didn't get
sections.
that one.
No, it's the same piece. It's section 16 and then
That is
section 41.
passed. It's
Okay.
passed. We did it already.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
that's ratification of that whole thing, okay? All right, ordinance number 13, when you get an opening, take it. Because we'll have you here for another 2 hours. So we get open and take it.
Well, thank you,
All right, thank you,
President
Mr.
and
Cole.
committee. I appreciate it.
All right, ordinance number 1372-2023 by Councilmember Spencer, an emergency ordinance designating West Clinton Avenue from West 58th Street to West 65th Street with a secondary and honorary designation of Judge Raymond L. Pianca Way. And Councilwoman Spencer, you have the floor.
Thanks, Council President. I think many on this body knew Judge Raymond L. Pianca personally, and he died much too young, much too soon. An impeccable public servant who had so much more to give to our community, and I can tell you that there hasn't been a day that has passed since I've been on council that I hadn't wished that he was there so I could turn to him for guidance and wisdom and insights about our community. And he was really in the prime of his career and had so much to give, and his untimely death is really been just such a loss, not only for his family, but for all of us. So I want to thank my staff who did an amazing job working with the community to collect the necessary signatures on West Clinton Avenue between West 58th and West 65th, which is where Ray spent a good deal of his childhood. It was his family's home. And I look forward to successful passage, and all members of this body will be invited to the future dedication ceremony, presuming passage tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have Councilman Jones, then McCormick.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I just, echo, first of all, I thank Jenny Spencer for recognizing former council member and then went on to become Judge Ray Pianca. My experience with Mr. Pianca was one where he was for all of Cleveland. And we have some very fond stories of him being engaged and involved in our community, helping with the work that needed to be done as relates to holding property owners accountable to their conditions of their property. And he single-handedly created this position. And he did a wonderful job, and I just think that at the end of the day, this is one little small thing in remembering his history and his memory here. And I would like to be added, Mr. Chairman, with my name on the legislation. Thank you.
Is there any objection to all the council being added to this piece of legislation? Please add all the council to this legislation. Councilman McCormick and then Councilman Palencia.
Chair, I was just going to be asked to add it to the legislation. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mike
Mr.
Palencia.
Chairman, I was going to do the same. All I can say is that I miss him greatly. I miss him greatly. He was a great judge who came out to our neighborhoods on a regular basis, and I miss that kind of engagement. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman, thank you so much for doing this. Karen was also a very good friend of mine. We served as officers in the party, and I know that her and Ray had a special bond, and their daughter as well. And this is a fitting tribute to that entire family, especially Ray, who was absolutely an outstanding gentleman in person. So thank you. That being said, this committee of the whole is called to adjourn to the next year. We won't be meeting again till next year. I do want to announce to my colleagues, if you want to stop by for some food, where's Councilman Starr? We're going to celebrate his Founders Day with the livest and rivalous fraternity in the city of Cleveland at 6 o'clock. So if anybody want to come get some food and meet the Q Dogs, come
Where's
on.
that at?
It'll be right in here, right in here. But I'm going to give Councilman Starr some love too. This committee is adjourned. Thank you.
even though it is a Caribou Classic and it is done almost every year, you've never seen it like this.